All right, it's the horror championship. All right, so it all comes down to this. We've been going for 5 decades, all the way from the 2010s on through the 70s, and I am your host, Jordan Movie Hero Anderson. I'll be with you tonight, and this is the show where we're going to determine the best of the best. We're going to come up with a definitive top 10 list of the greatest horror movies of all time. So it should be a fun time. And we have a few returning guests joining us tonight. We have one first timer, so I'll go ahead and introduce them. First up, we have my co-host, as always, Austin Pez Howell.
Well, hello. I am the real talent, obviously.
Yes,
but,
right.
yeah. Well, Jordan, I've guided you through these decades, and hopefully you've had a good time building up to this. And, this is going to be – I mean, we keep saying, like, this is going to be the toughest one yet, every time we got through a different decade or whatever. But realistically, trying to come up with the 10 best is going to be something. But it's all been building to this. I'm a big wrestling fan. I know Steve is. It's a big Royal Rumble, a big battle royale here. And we're going to throw them all and see what happens and who emerges victorious.
Well, this is where you got to be super picky.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the ones that you ranked S tier before, because these are all S tier ones from every. You got to rank them lower. You'll have some of the you ones ranked S tier, maybe down in the C tier or B tier. So it's going to be tough. So.
All right. Well, let's get these people in here and let's get this thing going, Jordan. What do you say?
Yeah. So next up, we got Mark Edward Hoyk. How's it going, Mark?
I'm one creepy SOB who knows how to spell my own name, unlike some people.
Oh, sorry.
Look, I had a whole Schmodown angle over this. I was cutting promos about it, so I had to give you a little bit of ribbing.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, yeah. No, aside from a few grammatical errors, it was a nice intro.
Yes.
Definitely.
That's probably where
that's okay.
Where I got the spelling is probably from over in the Schmodown. But next up we have Adam Collins. How's it going?
Hey, I'll be honest, guys. I'm thrilled to be back here, but I've just been trying to figure out a way to hang out with Mark. He's been elusive lately. How you been? We're worried about you.
Well, I've had the same worries about all of you as well.
Well, you're always in my thoughts, sir, and I love that hat. And it's good to be back, Jordan and Austin. There's a few decades I missed, but I feel like this is the perfect show for me to come back to fill in my gaps and make up for some lost time.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and hopefully our lists that we came up with, in your absence, were still. I felt like they were still pretty good. So, I think we got.
From what I've seen so far, it's a satisfactory. List
yeah, satisfactory, right?
We'll see.
Yeah,
that's good.
Definitely.
And then last but certainly not least, we have Steve Mesa. Is it going?
It's going well. I mean, I forgot my red shirt because apparently I'm the one that dies first.
Yeah, right. You should have worn
I'll use the Star Trek vernacular here. But no, it's great to be here. Had friendly conversations with Austin, with maybe a little tussle or two on some trivia shows and tier ranker shows. Yeah. But I'm glad to be here, and I can't wait to start figure out who goes over the top rope and end up as the ultimate victor.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hopefully we don't have a tie and Vince McMahon comes in and tears his quads. So we definitely don't want that.
Right.
And that's a wrestling reference for anybody who doesn't understand wrestling, but 2005 Royal Rumble. Anyways.
Nice.
I remember.
Yeah.
Well, as long as we don't get a dusty finish.
Yeah, right.
Yes, that's right. No dusty finishes here. And Andres Gallegos unfortunately had to ghost this show.
Yeah.
But because he doesn't have any power right now in his apartment because of this crazy weather, he is unable to join us. So we love you, Andres.
He has ghosts in his apartment.
Ghosts. He could. He could have gremlins
ghosts
in there. He could have anything.
Huh.
Yep.
Yeah. If the lights on, flicker in your house, you just might have a gremlin.
Yeah.
In your house.
But beware of their diabolical sabotage.
Yep. But we'll go ahead and explain how this thing's going to work. We have some rules here on tier ranker fights. They're kind of some loose rules just to kind of keep some order to the chaos. But I'll just throw them up here and I'll read them out to you. But basically, let's have a good, clean fight. Please do not talk or shout over each other. Please do be respectful of others' opinions. Each person will take turns to select a movie for ranking. The person who selected the movie will have 1 minute to explain which tier they think it should go in and why. All the participants will then each have 1 minute to say why they agree or disagree and may suggest a new ranking. The host, which is me, will decide on a ranking that averages out everyone's opinions and ask if the proposed ranking is acceptable. At that point, we can have a little bit of a debate over where the final ranking is gonna land. So yeah, that's how it's gonna work.
And I'll just give one quick disclaimer since this is a championship for anybody watching. So we fully acknowledge once again that all the 50 movies here in contention, once Jordan pulls up these charts, are S-level movies. We have determined that in previous shows. They are superior films. We are not disputing that. So if something gets ranked here in a B tier or a C tier, it's only because they are that in contention with the other films. So we are not saying they are mediocre in any way or they're bad. We are simply... we have to be even more critical of our rankings for this championship show and what we put in the S tier. So, but we just want to mention that these are not, these are all S level movies, and we know that. So we just want to keep that clear. It's much different from a usual tier ranker show.
I could live with that. I can live with that.
Okay, just making sure. So Jordan's going to load this thing up, and we'll get this thing rolling, and we'll see what happens. But yeah. Lots of classics on there, and we'll see if it skews to certain decades or if it skews older. If we get some newer stuff in there, we'll kind of see what happens.
Let's get ready to ranker.
Ranker,
yeah. And I'm gonna actually I'm gonna get rid of these
ads in the present.
Ads on the side.
Oh, we don't need all that nonsense.
Yeah.
Now, Hoik, real quick, while I got here, anxious we can get you out to Spectacular.
Let's see. When remind me, when is Spectacular?
First week of December 4th.
December 4th.
Oh.
Are you going to be in LA?
Oh yeah, I'll be in LA.
All right, we'll talk.
Okay.
Just want to make sure you're in the area.
Yeah. Oh yeah, well, because I'm supposed to be doing Death of an American Guitar at Chris Clark's Steinman tribute that night. So.
Oh, I'm very excited. All right, cool. We'll talk later so we can do the show. But
Nice.
yeah, just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Looking forward to that. Yeah. But yeah, this is essentially how it's going to work for anyone who hasn't done it or might be tuning in for the first time. We just go like grades in school. We have S for superior, and then just goes A, B, C, D, and then F. And I didn't put any other, like, not a horror movie or
because we already determined these are all horror movies. They've already made rankings. So yeah, we don't have to have those debates. They're already there.
Nope, they've already made them. So, and also for the panelists, I put all the movies in the private chat. I have them listed there. So if you have any question on what's what, you can still ask. But I know some of the little icons can be a little small to see. But yeah, we always start at the bottom of the ladder as how it's displayed. So as the host, I always go last. So Steve, you are at the bottom of the ladder tonight, so you will be going first. So do you want to pick one and
so basically, I know this is your first time on Tier Rankers, so basically you can pick any movie from the list and nominate it. You can shoot high and go for what do you think is one of the top 10 for the S level, or you can maybe pull out something you think just doesn't cut the mustard compared to everything else and put it in a B or a C or an A or something, whatever you want to do. So you can pick any movie you want.
You know what? I'm gonna shoot high for this one. I'm shooting high, and I'm gonna shoot with my number one pick, in my opinion, and that would be Spielberg's Jaws.
Right.
Jaws is an all-time classic. It's basically the first summer blockbuster to come out in I believe it was seven. Get me wrong. I'm like 77.
75.
74. 74.
75.
My seven. Okay, yeah. So I was shooting in the middle. So no. So this is a man. It's a man versus beast movie that you just with all the tech. We all know how Bruce wasn't really functioning until to the end, but that made it all the better. So we didn't see too much of the shark until literally when he pops his head off to almost bite Roy Scheider's head off. And I mean, screenplay. I think I don't know if a lot of people talk about it, but I think the screenplay is like top tier. Great quotes. You need, that's a bad hat, Harry. That's a bad hat. We need a bigger boat. Good Lord, the Indianapolis speech. Come on. And great cast to boot. Murray Hamilton as a sleazebag mayor. Roy Scheider as the chief. Robert Shaw as the quintessential madman, modern at the time Captain Ahab, and Richard Dreyfuss at Matt Hooper, who turns out to show up in another movie called Piranha and get eaten, and which I love love that the most. And yeah, man, I got to shoot with my number one, and I picked Jaws.
Yeah.
All right,
Well,
Adam, do you agree it should be in the top 10, or do you think it should be lower?
Well, first of all, it's good to meet you, Steve.
Yes, sir.
Okay, just want to make sure, Steve. Coming out with the hot take that Jaws is good. I agree that Jaws is really, really good. No, I love this movie. Like most people, it is one of the first horror movies I ever saw. Oddly enough, it was this one, and specifically A Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Those are the first two I remember seeing before anything else scary or spooky or violent. So Jaws. It's a transcendent movie. It goes way beyond a single genre. It is effectively a horror film, but it's also an adventure movie. It's a drama, and it holds up because of everyone's commitment to it. And I even have a soft spot for the 3 sequels, which are all varying degrees of bad, but they're still fun to watch because they're shark movies. And Jaws effectively launched a subgenre of horror movies because shark is a genre now. It is.
Yeah.
There are shark movies coming out pretty much every year, whether they're direct to streaming or theatrical. And things like The Shallows and 47 Meters Down and The Meg, they're out there because we all still love Jaws. So S tier, start out strong, supporting this one.
Yeah. Mark, what do you think for Jaws?
Yeah, well,
in the S tier compared to what we have on the list?
I have to back up Adam on the fact that shark is a genre at this point. I was ribbing a friend recently who is working on a film for Millennium New Image, and I asked him, does your protagonist have to fight a giant mechanical shark at the end? So, because if you haven't noticed, they like to do shark ripoffs. What I would add to the discourse on Jaws and why it belongs in the S tier is that I don't know if it is the first, but it is arguably the most earliest and significant horror film to take place in broad daylight. Like anybody can do a scary movie with, night and moonlight and shadows and fog and such. And here there is sun, there is, water, there are hot girls, and none of that is going to protect you against this existential threat. So that's some influential filmmaking there.
Yeah.
100%.
So you still say S tier then?
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with it? All right. Sounds good. Austin, what do you think?
Yeah, I can't argue against S tier for Jaws, because when I'm thinking of, and I was putting together my own list of the 10 best, it's also its replayability, its impact on pop culture, its impact on people's personal lives, which in this case, how many people did this scare out of the ocean forever after they saw it? I mean, and still to this day does that. And to me, if a movie can do that to, a significant amount of people that see it, that saw it back then, that saw it throughout the years, that still see it today and are still terrified of this movie, and it is, like we said, the quintessential shark movie or even animals attack movie. Every animals attack movie, wants to be Jaws. And that's what we think is we have to take into consideration the movies that everybody wants to be when they want to be something in the horror genre. every animal movie wants to be Jaws, and then we saw so many countless knockoffs. So I think because of that, because of the impact it's had, I think it deserves a spot in the top 10.
Yeah,
Right.
for sure.
Jordan?
Well, for me, I don't really want to call myself a contrarian against Jaws, because I actually really do love Jaws. I think Jaws is a great movie. Like it on any other list, I think I would give it an S tier. But I just think that compared to what we have, where more movies just feel more like pure horror to me, I just kind of would probably give it more of like an A tier. And also too, I think that uh, Jaws gets a little overhyped to me, kind of like it's this greatest movie ever made, and maybe it is,
Because it
but I
is.
mean, yeah,
It is the greatest movie ever made.
yeah, but there's no knock against it. Like I think that it's great, but I'd just give it an A tier personally. But so yeah, but I think even so, though, we would still leave it in the S tier because enough of us voted S tier.
Well,
so.
I still take track of the votes as we go along. So with 4 S's and an A, it's still going to stay there for now. But we'll see where it ends up in the final rankings and see if anything bumps it out.
And also, I forgot I was going to read it up top, just for anyone who might be watching who might not see their favorite horror movie here in the mix. Let me just read to you how tough this was for us to come up with over all these episodes. Just read off just a little list of some of the movies that did not make our list that you think might deserve a spot. So
I've noticed a few that didn't make it.
Yeah. So we do not have Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors. We do not have Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, Evil Dead 1 and 2, and Army of Darkness, Event Horizon, The Blob, Tales from the Crypt, The Omen, Sleepaway Camp, Scanners, Videodrome, Children of the Corn, Child's Play, The Reanimator, Friday the 13th 1 and 2, Pumpkinhead, Fright Night, Jacob's Ladder, Scream 2, Arachnophobia, Interview with the Vampire, From Dusk Till Dawn, and The Frighteners were just some of the ones I thought that could have very well made this list easily, but I mean it was tough. We could only have 10 from each decade, so if you don't see them, I mean they were definitely brought up on those episodes though, for sure. So,
All right.
But yeah, we'll move on.
I think we're to Adam.
To Adam, you're up next. So,
Sure.
What do you want to go with?
Yeah, so there are so many very obvious options here that I'm confident we're going to get to in this episode, and I'll save some of my options for later in the rankings, just in case they haven't come up. But one I'm going to go with that. We may not have thought to cover this early in the episode. Is Midsommar. I would really like to talk about this one because I was not able to do the 2010s rankings episode, so I was not able to speak to this or Hereditary. But I noticed Hereditary didn't make the cut.
Yes.
I will disclaimer the fact that this is the single Ari Aster film to make the 2010s does influence my decision a little bit to bring it up early. So I just want to put it out there that I love Hereditary, and I love Midsommar as well for different reasons. So I think Midsommar is an S tier film that continues to grow, at least in my personal estimation, and a lot of other people who really like this movie. It's a film that is an unyielding look into a toxic relationship, and when that relationship is put on display in a microcosm of society, it becomes obvious how grotesque some of the ways we treat each other really are, not just within relationships, but within friendships as well. And when this movie came out, there were a lot of quick comparisons to The Wicker Man, which I can understand in terms of like aesthetic specifically, but they're very different stories in my opinion. And I think Midsommar really focuses, like Hereditary, on someone who's really just completely rattled by tragedy. And that opening scene really sets the tone for the film. And speaking of films in broad daylight, Jaws was the first, but Midsommar was the first one in a while, at least in the modern era, to really make a specific attempt to put these things on these specific kind of horrors on display in a completely visible way. So the violence in this film is very specific and unnerving, and the reason I think it's S tier, I think we will get a Criterion release of this and Hereditary before too long. I think they deserve it. I think Ari Aster is a very special filmmaker who, in his own words, has said, that horror isn't something he necessarily set out to do, but horror encapsulates so many things and opens up a wider audience to a story that is looking at things that make us really uncomfortable. And I think Midsommar does that exceptionally well. I know I've gone long on this, but I really love this film. Yeah. I have the director's cut of it, and it's one that I revisit, and it gets better when I watch it. And I know it's divisive, so if it ends up in A, I'm not going to lose any sleep, but that's my pitch.
Well, just to let you know, Adam, on the actual episode, I believe Midsommar was in the top 3 when we individually ranked them. So it ranked pretty high on the episode. Nice. I'm pretty sure, I don't remember specifically, but I believe it was somewhere in the top 3. And I think it's just because the panelists
is what it was.
It might have even been number 1 on that episode. Yeah. So, and I think Hereditary made the honorable mentions. It was still in the poll. I think it was like at the top of the A tier. I think our panel just preferred Midsommar over Hereditary. That's all it was.
No, I understand. It's tough to have 2 from the same filmmaker on the top 10.
Yeah.
But I love both films, so I'm glad it made it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Mark, do you think it deserves a spot on this elusive S tier for this episode? And why?
I think without slighting any of the movies from the 2010s. I think of that list, the one that maybe has the strongest claim to get into the S tier would be Midsommar, because while it is building upon a template previously established by folk horrors, not just The Wicker Man, but also Blood on Satan's Claw and Eye of the Devil, but as Adam brought up about that, I think a lot of the best horror movies not only have a general element of fear, but an element of sadness and of loss and pain to them that reinforces what is frightening. Because we're all afraid of things like death and injury and dismemberment, but it is also just emotional violation, and there is plenty of that in Midsommar, and so I'm not 100% behind an S tier on this, but I do believe it has a right to be considered in S tier, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, for sure. Well, Austin, what do you think?
Man, this is tough because I love Midsommar. To me, if I had to put it in a tier, I would put it in A tier, only because I feel like when we're talking about all-time classics, when you've got a movie from 2 years ago and hasn't really had time to permeate, I think, the pop culture and see how much people go back to it or have gone back to it over and over and over again, it does get talked about a lot, and it does have a lot of acclaim. It's a movie that has stuck with me very much so. Much of the imagery from the movie has stuck with me since I saw it, and I have watched it again fairly recently. To me, these classics it's a matter of time. And so, to put it in an ultimate top 10 of the greatest of all time, it might be, give it 5-10 years maybe, but to me, for right now, I would have to give it an A ranking.
Yeah. Totally makes sense. But for me, I think that Midsommar actually does deserve an S tier, because if I'm looking at all the movies that we had from the 2010s, I don't know how many of them are actually going to end up making an S tier. I think that if anyone has the best case to make it to the S tier, I think Midsommar for sure. That movie just blew me away when I saw it. Like there's one of those movies when you see it, you just know it's going to be an instant classic. You just know it, like right when you see it, and it's just like had some really cool themes that just like really made me think, really like made me feel like really creeped out in a way that's different than most horror movies, and especially the endings is like pretty shocking, and like even some other things throughout the movie are kind of shocking too. So yeah, I would say S tier for Midsommar. So about that, Steve.
We'll
What do you
see.
think?
I'm gonna have to. Wow, somebody's really pissed off.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm gonna not. I'm not gonna agree. I'm gonna have to go on with Austin on this one. It does take a couple years for when we're thinking about S tier. I mean, my point is at this point mute at this point, but I'm agreeing with Austin. When we're talking about all-time classic, I think of other movies that I would put over Midsommar, and on my honest opinion, I would put Get Out over Midsommar. That's my personal preference. But I understand the case on which everybody's making the case for Midsommar being an S tier movie. But I would go with A because I've only seen it just the one time, and I'm a little hesitant to visit the second time around because that opening scene really opens up some. I mean, I never had any experience like that, but it opens like some wounds that's really very not fresh, but just like it's not just it's very traumatizing that I didn't think I would even get past it. I almost walked out of the first time after the opening, to be honest with you, just because I just kind of like it terrified me that's the thought of losing your family in such a tragic way and random, but like just it's just one of the worst nightmares to ever come. Beautiful cinematography. I mean, it was probably the best shot film of 2018, 2019. But I would have to say it would have belonged to the A tier if I had to say.
All right. So where are we at? We got a couple of S's.
We got 3 S's and an A, or 3 S's and 2 A's. So it might stay there for now, but depending on what other things get S rankings, it might get bumped. Now we will still have a top 10 like we usually do, and 3 honorable mentions as well, like we always do. Yeah. So we'll see where it ends up after all the voting is done. But for now, it'll kind of slide in there. But we'll see.
Yeah.
All right, Mark, are you gonna shoot high for a top 10er to start off?
I am indeed.
All right.
Continuing my theme of the best horror having unbearable sadness to it, I have to go S tier for David Cronenberg's remake of The Fly. That it is, Cronenberg has made so many terrific movies about body horror, and I feel like this might have been the zenith of it because it comes just as the real life critical mass of the AIDS crisis was coming in, and dealing with the idea of someone who has made one rash decision that has doomed them, and someone dealing with all of the emotions that come into play in watching someone they care about deteriorate. That there's care, but there's also repulsion and fear and anger and just all these stages of breakdown, and it's also just got killer effects that still make me wince all these years after I first saw it in high school.
Yeah, absolutely. Austin, what do you think for The Fly?
I can't agree more with Mark about The Fly being one of the top 10. I cannot tell you how many times I've gone back and watched this movie since I first discovered it, probably a decade ago or so, and I first picked up the DVD and blind bought it and watched it. I have watched this movie probably, no joke, 40, 50 times since I purchased it. I love this movie. I watch it, and it's for such a simple story of just what Jeff Goldblum's transformation, what he's going through, and his relationship with Gina Davis. For how kind of small scope the movie is, it's just a character piece and a tragedy that I keep coming back to, and it just gets me every single time. The orchestral music is amazing. The performances are top-notch, incredible. If we were ranking, horror performances, I think both Gina Davis and Jeff Goldblum give S-tier performances in this film. I just think everything, the filmmaking is on par. The effects still hold up. All the body horror is amazing. This is in my personal top 10 of all time. So, yeah, I have to agree with The Fly making it up into that S tier for the show.
Yeah. I really like how you guys described it. Like both of you guys, like just like describing all the different themes and of like loss and like seeing someone that you really care about just have this descent kind of into madness essentially, and like the whole transformation and like the and how the effects really hold up. I mean, I just echo everything that you guys said, and I say yes for the S tier. Like The Fly, I only saw it within the past year for the first time, and it absolutely blew me away. So yeah, S tier for The Fly. Steve?
All right, Mr. Mesa.
I'm hoping to get it for a clean sweep here. Let's go for S tier on this this sucker, dude. David Cronenberg, the master of body horror, directs the ultimate body horror movie in The Fly. I mean, if you thought about this, if we were pitching The Fly right now, you would think, remake of an old 1954 movie. It would not have sunk in at this time, but you take it at the time in the 80s where, like Austin was telling that in the midst of the AIDS crisis and people afraid to lose their humanity as they're getting sick, it's in its embodiment in Jeff Goldblum as Brundlefly. Also, the fact that I also am a big fan of when they did the effects in Universal Studios in Florida, when they did that is it the makeup show? And one of the part of it was having one of the guys transform into one of the Fly. If that's part of the universe, if there's any part of a Universal if there's any movie that's part of a Universal Studios attraction, it belongs in the S tier, in my opinion. Everybody has. I just wanted to put my spin on it, but everybody who has said anything really very well about The Fly, I also concur on their opinions as well.
Well, you heard it from Steve Mesa. Twister belongs in the S tier of all-time great movies. Yeah. I agree. I agree.
Best tornado movie of all time. Yes.
Fast and Furious. Also, but
all right, Mr. Collins.
I will back up the Twister argument. I love Twister.
Sure.
If you haven't seen it, I was fortunate enough to do all my movies with Dan Merle when he covered Twister, and that was
I love Twister.
Getting to nerd out about that movie for a half hour was very enjoyable. So the Fly is firmly an S tier film. You guys let me go hard on Midsommar. I appreciate that. Yeah. So I'll try and keep this succinct. The Fly it's a masterpiece of any genre. It happens to be a horror film that's really, really great. It has everything I love about horror movies. I don't know if I mentioned this the first time we discussed The Fly, but I always, growing up watching this movie, I kind of looked up to Seth as Jeff Goldblum, especially in this role. I always wanted to have a pull-out bed and a couch because he slept on one. I thought that was really cool because Jeff Goldblum had it. For the longest time. And honestly, for anyone who hasn't seen the original film from 1958, definitely watch it because it has a lot of the same themes that you would expect, executed in a very different way. And while I do think Cronenberg's film is an improvement upon it, it often eclipses that original movie. And I definitely would encourage people to go back and watch the original when they get a chance if they haven't seen it. But I love this movie. Let's keep it at the top.
Yeah.
All right.
Wasn't unanimous.
Well, it's a clean sweep for The Fly, so it's going to scoot up, to
Yeah.
the top right now, and we'll see what happens. All
Yeah,
right.
well, Austin, you're up next. So what do you
All right.
go with?
I'm going to stick with the 80s, and I'm also going to stick with a remake, much like The Fly, and go with the movie that I think is just king of horror movies. The Thing is king. John Carpenter's The Thing is, to me,
Which is
fine.
That's totally fine.
Why don't you pick the one of your favorite horror franchise? Wink, wink. Because I'll probably agree with you on that one, Jordan. If you catch that one, catch my drift. Okay. Anyways, I'm gonna go with The Thing. I think it's John Carpenter's. It's like the apex of John Carpenter. He was coming off of Halloween, The Fog, Escape from New York. I mean, it seems like all these movies that were kind of building to his masterpiece, this thriller suspense creature movie set in the Arctic, already scary because of the isolation. So you got isolation horror, you got paranoia horror, which is my favorite subgenre of horror, people not trusting each other, not knowing who to trust. And then you've got crazy monster horror. You've got Rob Bottin making some of the greatest creatures that have ever been set to film, some of the most unique ones ever set to film, ones that still hold up, that still terrify. I still see these YouTube videos of people watching this movie for the first time and reacting to it and just being horrified by some of the stuff you see in this movie. It's stuff that sticks with you. I mean, the dog creature, the surgery scenes, the head, the spider monster, everything is just amazing. Kurt Russell is the man. It's like peak Kurt Russell. This movie is just masterful in every way conceivable. It works as a remake. It works as its own movie. It's wonderful. It does everything a remake should and everything a horror movie should. So I think it deserves a spot in the top 10, personally.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always like to mention this, but we have another show on our channel called Blind Spots, where I watch movies for the first time, and then I do a review after seeing it for the very first time. And I watched The Thing for the first time last year, and I was absolutely stunned. Like, I was blown away. And we were trying to list off all the pros and the cons, and I could not think of a single con for the movie I had a guest on, and neither one of us we couldn't come up with any cons. So yeah, like kind of like you said, Austin, the creature effects are amazing, and just like the whole isolation of everything, these things coming out of nowhere. You have no idea what this thing even is. Like just the idea of a monster called the Thing, but you don't know what it is. It's just terrifying. And the cast is pretty fun too. I mean, besides Kurt Russell, I mean, there's Keith David, Wilford Brimley is great in it. I mean, yeah, like it's a fun time, and yeah, I would say S tier for The Thing, absolutely. So,
right. Steve,
S tier, baby, dude. This is John Carpenter's masterpiece. He delivers in tenfolds all the. We talk about body horror. I guess we're continuing linking to body horror. I mean, dude, these heads melt and deform all in front of our eyes. And back before it was even CGI, this was classic old school animatronics, really good as special effects that just made it just looked terrifying to even be anywhere within the vicinity. I mean, we talk about, I mean, in a way you can kind of, no, I mean, I won't bring that up, but Kurt Russell, Keith David, Wilford Brimley, I mean, they deliver. I mean, all you would think just the one scene with the blood. Just all I can say is the blood test. Test scene. That's it. Enough said. Score is amazing. Again, this is Carpenter's masterpiece, and I definitely agree this belongs in the S tier.
Yeah. Adam, what do you think?
Yeah. This is we're going to be crowding this top area pretty quickly, so I'm going to have to rethink my strategy. But the thing is infinitely rewatchable film, much like The Fly. These are great films that are honestly kind of incidentally great companion pieces, even though they're made by different filmmakers and they're a few years apart. Really, really great movies in their own rights, respectively. But The Thing is a movie that initially failed and then found its audience and has since become just one of the most celebrated films of the genre and of the decade, really. And the thing that I love about rewatching this film is when you go back and watch it, it's not just about the tension and discomfort and the mistrust. There are moments of levity. These characters, most of them are quite likable. And that's what makes their transitions and transformations that much more disturbing when they take place. So, great film. And God, this is gonna get tough.
I know.
We're gonna have to make some tough decisions.
I know. Yeah.
That's
Well, Mark?
Yeah. Well, the another tough decision that's going to have to have the can kicked down the road because Thing should be in S tier as well. Much as I think Jordan brought up, I love going on YouTube and looking at specifically female first-time film reactors watching The Thing. They are never prepared for where it goes, and just the gamut of emotions that it wrings out of people. And I don't know if I can really add anything to what everyone else has brought to the table. Suffice that, it needs to be. It should be there.
Yep.
Well, Kurt Russell's line he delivers after the spider head emerges is like most of the movie, where he just goes, "You got to be fucking kidding me!" And that's like the entire movie of almost every image from that movie, and it sums up like everything about it. But yeah, with Jordan, I think as we go along, we might see that it might take literal clean sweeps for stuff to stay in the S tier. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
if there's any dissenting opinions, it might get knocked. But for right now, we'll see how they stack up in the end.
Yeah. But
Jordan, it's your turn. So
Yeah.
what do you want to go with?
Well, you already alluded to it, Austin, so I got to go with one for my favorite franchise of all time. This is actually my favorite horror movie, period. So I got to go with Scream. Scream is just an amazing movie that just blew me away when I first saw it, and it's one of Wes Craven's best, and just the cast alone has a really cool cast that like outside of Scream, maybe I wouldn't care for this cast too much, but you put them in Scream with the great writing and like just like a lot of existential things that they talk about. Like it gets a little meta here, even more so in some of the sequels. But I mean, like Ghostface, I've been Ghostface multiple times for Halloween. I think he's just a really cool character because literally anyone could be under that costume. Like could even be multiple people. I mean, you never know. So, and it made me care about people like David Arquette, Matthew Lillard, Jamie Kennedy. I mean, Courtney Cox. People that like I'm not really big on, but in Scream, I actually really am. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Scream. See what you guys think. Steve?
I couldn't agree more with you, Jordan. You know, Scream is what revitalized the horror genre and what made everybody want to copy. Scream was the formula for every 90s slasher film.
Yep.
Anybody who wanted to make a slasher film, they basically took the formula of Scream and they either made it to somewhat moderate success. I know what you did last summer. Or failed miserably and crashed and burned with many movies to talk about that I don't have time to talk about. Cast, come on, cast. Rose McGowan, Nev Campbell, Skeet Ulrich, Matthew Lillard, Nev Campbell, Drew Barrymore. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. And the fact that it also name checks and it shows Halloween, dude.
Yep.
Already in like Flynn with this one, and all I gotta say is you gotta leave. I'm not gonna make the joke. I'm gonna make a liver joke, but forget about it because I knew I was gonna mess it up anyways. But point of it is, I do believe Scream belongs in the S tier because guess what? Yes, it's for Scream.
Yep, right. S for Scream. Let's go. Adam, what do you think?
I am not even making this up tonight, not because of the show specifically, but I was literally halfway through watching the first Scream. I mean, it's a movie I've seen dozens of times, but like a lot of people, got the bug recently to rewatch all four because of the trailer. You know, I'm excited about that new movie. So good a time as any to rewatch them, right? And I really, really do love Scream. I like all four movies to varying degrees, but the first one is very, very special. It's a movie that decided to break the mold when no one was really expecting it. There wasn't any echo chamber on the internet to have these kind of discussions. It was an organic product of the way people react to these kinds of stories. And Wes Craven understood that really well. And that's why New Nightmare was kind of the predecessor to this in a lot of ways. It really opened up the door to play with the genre in really interesting ways. So the thing with me personally about Scream as well is I think it's a movie that deserves to be celebrated and end up on the top of many lists. If we're talking about all time, for me, I will put it into A tier by a hair, only because the movie is fun for me, but it is not a visceral, like engaging experience like I have with some of these other films. And that's the only reason I'm going to create just a little bit of wiggle room and give it an A rating, even if it ends up in S tier, which would not bother me at all. But this is a tight race, so I'm going to give it a slight A tier rating. Don't throw me off the show.
Right. Well,
no, you're fine.
Well, no, some of these movies are going to have to end up in the A, if not the B tier. So, I mean, we'll see what happens.
Well, that's why I'm still keeping track of the votes because, it may end up literally being, unless the movie had at least 4 S votes or a clean sweep, it may not end up there. Some of them are going to get bumped eventually. Yeah. So we're going to see what happens.
One thing I wanted to add before I move on to Mark is I completely agree that something like Midsommar is going to take some time to gestate in the zeitgeist. But the reason I wanted to make my pitch for it is because I had a very visceral reaction to that. And I've lived with Scream for 20, the better part of 20 years. And I still find myself drawn to Midsommar more for personal reasons. So that's kind of the distinction I'm trying to make.
I understand. Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
Totally makes sense, yeah. But Mark, what do you think for Scream?
Well, I have to be clear, I do not want to see Scream make S tier and Halloween not make S tier, and I don't think that's going to happen anyway. But what I do want to say is that I think both Scream and Halloween should be in S tier, and the reason is that when Wes Craven did New Nightmare, he was making a metatextual commentary on just one film series, and with Scream, he was making it about the whole slasher genre, of pointing out the tropes and creating new tropes to go against them. That people who think they're smarter than a movie character, but make their own dumb mistakes that they didn't think that they'd be capable of. That it is, it is commenting upon the horror film's place in society and what it does to people in terms of, does it desensitize them to violence, or is it just a gallows humor and a way to deal with complex emotions? And So it was the number one film on our list for the best of the 90s, and so I think by that metric, it does deserve to be in S tier because a lot of the films that we get in the 2000s and beyond are very good, but they are building upon what was already done and not adding that much to it. But Scream definitely explored and heightened and added new mythology. So I think like Godard said, the only way you can really criticize a movie is to make another movie, and that's what Craven did.
Yep.
It might actually that might have been Truffaut, but I don't know. One of the Frenchmen.
Right. Well, Austin, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm gonna go S tier for Scream because look, let's put it this way: if you walk up to, if you were to do a survey on the streets and you ask people, name a horror movie from the 90s, I can almost guarantee 9 out of 10 are going to say Scream. It's going to be one of the first things that pops into people's heads because it was a phenomenon and it was a turning point and a milestone for horror, especially in the 90s. I mean, there's a reason we had it at the top of the 90s chart. It's because it defines everything about 90s horror, and it brought back a genre that was essentially not dead, but like it was on life support. Let's just put it that way. After stuff like, Halloween 6 or, things like that were just on life, and it brought back, we wouldn't have Halloween H2O if it wasn't for Scream, things like that, all these revivals. I mean, we just wouldn't. So yeah, it's what I think of when I think of 90s horror, and if we're going to have something from the 90s, I think Scream epitomizes all of that.
Yeah. Well, I think by that sense, it ends up right around Jaws territory for
it's
now.
It's 4-1, yeah. We'll see if Midsommar hangs in there because Midsommar was 3 S's and 2 A's. So we'll actually see if it might get bumped eventually, but we'll see. Again, we'll have to see how these votes play out. But we're back around the horn, back down to Steve Mesa, sir. What would you like to talk about?
Yeah.
I'm gonna argue for the best, so I'm gonna keep shooting for the top here.
All right.
Silence of the Lambs.
All right.
Silence of the Lambs.
Where's that on here? If anyone sees it.
I see it right there. Oh, you passed it.
Right in the middle next to Suspiria.
Right next to Johnson.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's it.
I just know I'm going to get a lot of argument about this. Or no, I mean, Austin, Jordan, we talked about this movie in another show about this, and it's a horror. Thomas Harris wrote a horror novel. Austin made a good argument. I'll just he'll elaborate on it, but and it's the fact that there's a cannibal as part of one of the main facets of this movie just makes you can't argue that's a horror movie. Jodie Foster as the FBI agent, Anthony Hopkins, brilliant Anthony Hopkins, in, I believe, I might get this right, 15 minutes of screen time, 17 minutes of screen time.
17 minutes of screen time, yep.
Yeah.
17 minutes of screen time, and he won a Best Actor. I mean, the fact that he left an impression on the Academy and movie audiences to just to haunt their nightmares from now on, and also the fact that it left not the first movie, had a movie trilogy, but you also had the Hannibal series, which if it continued, they would have continued with the Silence of the Lambs storyline in the following season. And if you imagine how Silence of the Lambs would be great as a movie film, just imagine it being handled with Brian Fuller as the showrunner. Just imagine that. You can't imagine it because it's going to blow your freaking minds. Cinematography, score, screenplay. I mean, it just hits it. It just hits it for a home run here, and it's one of the most recent. Not recent, but it's one before Get Out. This was one of the most popular horror movies to be flaunted by the Academy, to be loved by the Academy. Because before this, I mean, almost like there was like Dr. Jekyll and Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and Ruth Gordon for Rosemary Baby as the two main horror movies to be recognized by the Academy. And after that, it was very, very not a lot until Silence of the Lambs, which swept up into 5 main categories: picture, best director, best actor, best actress, and best screenplay. And it deserves all the accolades it deserves. It's a classic horror. It's a classic horror movie, no matter what anybody says. And that's it.
Yeah.
Well, just to
Sounds
let you
good
know, Steve, our panel on the show agreed that it was a horror movie outright. It's just Malcolm on Rankum just disagrees with us
Yeah.
that it's not a horror movie.
Yeah.
Our panel on this show was fully on board. So just to quell your concerns.
I'm so traumatized.
Yeah.
Like, but a horror movie? No.
Yeah. No. Yeah. But anyway, sorry, Adam Collins.
Well, Adam? Yeah.
Yeah, I won't split hairs on the genre because I think there's plenty of horrific things in this movie, like there are in any of the Hannibal Lecter films. The Sounds of the Lambs was just a really unique film when it released for so many reasons, but for it to have captured the curiosity and attention of so many people the way it did was a very organic thing, especially since Manhunter had released, I think 5 years prior and had done okay, but hadn't nearly gotten the attention that Silence of the Lambs has. And nowadays, a lot of people argue that Manhunter might be a superior film in a lot of ways. I think that's entirely subjective, of course, but I think they're both firmly on par with each other in a lot of ways. And I think they're both excellent movies. Silence of the Lambs, for me, I think it's an excellent thriller. Even though I know exactly what's going to happen, I'm always excited when I'm watching it again. I'm always in a genuine state of suspense. I understand why there's an ongoing discussion about the optics of the film, and aspects of transphobia and things like that. But I think I don't think that's exclusive to the Silence of the Lambs. I think that's something that could be applied to a lot of films in this genre that, deal in broad strokes. But there's so much this film gets right. And it's genuinely scary. It's very well acted. Mark, correct me if I'm wrong. Is it Tak Fujimoto who does a lot of Demi's films? The cinematographer? Because like that straight shot that he's known for.
I don't recall.
I know, like that.
I'll look it up real quick.
Like I know he did Philadelphia and
right.
Beloved and Silence of the Lambs. Like
You're right.
and all those '90s films, especially like Beloved, very underrated film. That I think if people love Silence of the Lambs and they love the way it's shot, they need to see Beloved. But what keeps me, like, again, we're looking at the big picture here. I'll say A tier by a hair as well to leave a little bit of breathing room, only because, again, like if comparing this to some of the films we've already discussed and some that are yet to come up, I have firm arguments for why other films would be placed higher on the list than The Silence of the Lambs for me, but it definitely deserves to be right at the top. And I think it's firmly A. If it ends up in S again, I don't think any of us are going to be upset. I wouldn't be.
Yep.
But there's so much to say about this movie, so.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot. Mark, what do you think? Mark?
I would echo Adam's sentiments in that I feel like, if we had a 13 spot S tier, it should be there. But as we have a 10 spot, if it get edged to an A, it's no insult upon the movie. It's just, a lack of space. And I think that there are a few other films that should be ahead of it. But yeah, in principle, this is S tier level filmmaking. That Demi had dabbled in, the thriller genre before, but this was coming off of 2 very light comedies, and people were thinking of him as the quirky guy, and he brought all of that quirk in, but in a completely different manner that continues to unsettle people. So So, and again, it became a phenom, and it's probably after Scream, the second film that people would say if you asked them to come up with a horror film of the 90s. So, so again, it's a marginal S/A for me.
Yeah. Austin, what do you think?
I'm in kind of the same boat as Adam and Mark, only because it's not in my personal 10 or even 15, although I again, I wouldn't be mad if it was in it, but to me, comparing to everything else, I just don't go back to it as often as I do some of the other movies that are already on this list and some of the movies that I think will still make this list. And for me, it's one of the factors that would keep it out of it just slightly, but I would go for a very strong A.
Yeah. Well, for me, I'm kind of in the same boat as you, Austin. Kind of like it's not one of the ones that I really go back to that often. I was very late to the party. I saw it maybe like a year or so ago, and also the fact that I'd heard all the hype about Silence of the Lambs, heard that it won all the awards. I just like something about it didn't excite me enough to want to watch it right away, because I had all these years to watch it, but never went to it. But I am very glad that I did, though. Like it is a great movie, and Ted Levine as Buffalo Bill, Anthony Hopkins, I mean Jodie Foster. I mean, it's a great cast, and it's a really just haunting movie. It's a movie that it really creeps me out. I wouldn't say like scares me, but it just really creeps me out, and it intrigues me to see some of the other Hannibal Lecter movies, because I haven't seen the other ones yet. So, but I would probably say, like, even for me, like I'm almost tempted to like put it in the B possibly, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do A, just because like it won all the awards, and I did have a great time when I finally sat down to actually watch it, and I can recognize why it won all the awards and why it's great. So I'm going to say A for me.
All right.
So,
well, this might be the first one that's definitively down in the A tier, because it's got 4 A's and an S. So the first one that doesn't definitively slide up in there. But we'll see where it ends. It could end up in the honorable mentions. We'll kind of see and play around with that later. But we're back around to Mr. Collins. So what is your next movie you want to talk about?
Now, I know we're trying to rank the top movies like ever, but like I'm allowed to ease off the clutch, right, and go for an A rating movie.
Sure, yeah.
You can go for an A. You can go for one you think is a C. That maybe you think the worst one on the list. You can go for whatever you want. You know.
No,
I mean, if you think this something doesn't belong, hey, listen. I just know if Jordan was doing this, he would put Texas Chainsaw down in the F, because he hates
I'm not very high on Texas Chainsaw.
Oh, you're not a fan of Franklin? You don't like Franklin?
No, he's not a fan. He's not a fan.
No, it didn't really resonate. But
he didn't like. He likes Texas Chainsaw too. He's a big fan.
Texas Chainsaw is great, but we digress. So
anyways.
I would like to make my argument for American Psycho being an A tier horror.
All right.
Okay.
In the overall pantheon of horror film history.
Sure.
Yeah.
So with American Psycho, I think what's unique about this is people familiar with the novel know that it's an incredibly explicitly violent novel that gets into detailed descriptions of what this character does that we only can imagine that he's doing in the film at certain parts. Yeah. But that's why this is just such a testament to adaptation. Mary Herron, who directed the film, does a marvelous job of really digesting the themes of the novel for a really, frankly, an enjoyable movie. Which, even though it's incredibly dark, it does not lose its satirical edge for a second, and it's not winking at the camera. It takes itself completely seriously, but you know this movie's on a slightly different wavelength.
Well, Patrick Bateman is literally winking at the camera a lot in that movie, but the movie itself is not winking at the camera.
Yeah, fair point, Austin. But the context is important.
The character himself, yes.
Yeah. Yes. But in any case, the thing that I love about this is it's capturing very much capturing its moment in the late 80s, where it's an indictment of yuppie culture, but it's so much more than that. It transcends the decade, in my opinion, in a lot of ways, and really deals with that Wall Street mentality that we've seen characterized in so many films. And the thing I love about Patrick Bateman is he knows nothing about what his job actually is. He doesn't know how to do anything that he's supposed to do. He just knows he's a vice president. And he just shows up for work every day and goes to meetings and then goes out at night and collects a paycheck and doesn't ask any questions. And he's so bored with it. That's why he moonlights as a killer. And then when he tries to confess everything, it doesn't even matter. I think this movie is so clever and fun to watch. It's very rewatchable. It's very quotable. The soundtrack is, admittedly a big playlist of 80s music, but really well curated 80s music. And his obsession with specific artists, he's like an animal trying to figure things out and aping what he, reads in reviews and hears on NPR. And I just love that about his character. I could go on, but I won't pitch S tier all time in the genre of horror. I think this is an A tier horror movie that's really earned its place in history. And a great one from a female filmmaker at that, about toxic masculinity.
Yeah, for sure. Mark, what do you think from American Psycho?
I will back this as an A tier film. I think one of the things that I'm particularly impressed by is first off, Adam was talking about having a job where you have no idea what you're doing, but apparently you're doing it well enough that no one wants to get rid of you, and that sounds like the 12 weeks I was stuck doing a temp job at a bank campus, and I did something with 401ks, and I don't know what it was, but I did it and I got paid. American Psycho is. I've never read the book, but I do know that I've had enough of Bret Easton Ellis in the general culture that I think he's kind of a prat. So I feel like whatever he had in the book, Mary Herron, and let us also bring in Guinevere Turner, who did the screenplay, greatly improved upon it, and I think even subverted it a little bit in the same way that if you've ever tried to read Gore Vidal's Myra Breckenridge, the book is ostensibly satire, but it still seems to take itself seriously. And Michael Sarne's adaptation is kind of making fun of the source material, even as it's adapting it. And also, I think American Psycho is testament to how, when it was first in production, they wanted a bigger name director. They wanted Leonardo DiCaprio, and they didn't get any of that. Mary Herron didn't have any juice behind her. Christian Bale was, that kid star people had forgotten about. And so, and I think that made the movie even better because they got people who weren't coming with a whole lot of baggage attached, and they were able to make something this transgressive. So, yeah, good solid A.
Yeah. Austin, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm cool with this one being in like a solid A tier. Yeah, it's not one of the ones I would have argued for S tier. But yeah, A tier, I'm down with that. It's an interesting subsection of horror with like the something that fascinates me is like the person, whether it's in the office or a coworker or something that has this other side of them that you never know about. And that, they could be doing horrific things on a nightly basis. And yeah, like you said, he comes into the office and just talks Wall Street the next day. And it's always fascinating what people themselves are capable of when they're motivated like that. So I like that American Psycho kind of, explores that a lot. And I recently rewatched it before we did our show in the 2000s. Got my 4K Blu-ray. It looks great, by the way. And I hadn't seen it in a long time, and had a lot of fun with it. And it's definitely going to be in my rotation. So yeah, it's not in my personal top 10, but I am firmly okay with it being in an A tier here.
Yeah, and I'm also on the same page as you guys, and also the Patrick Bateman. I'm having a job that I was thrown into, and I have no clue what I was doing. So I actually helped build the Blue Origin building over in Kent, Washington for Amazon, and I know little to nothing about construction. I know how to hammer nails, know how to cut wood, and I know how to hang insulation slightly, kind of. But so it's like, if you don't tell me exactly what to do and like walk me through this, I have no idea what I was doing. But it's a temp job where they're paying really well, so I did it. But I do have to say though that I have about 6 or 7 blind spots still on the list. I'm trying to make my way through it. I still have yet to see American Psycho, so it's high on my list. And looking at the cast, I didn't know that a lot of people that were in this cast, like Reese Witherspoon, William Dafoe, Chloe Sevigny, so yeah. But yeah, I have to refrain from giving it a ranking though. So
fair enough. Steve,
we know you'll watch it, Jordan. You're really good about that.
Oh yeah,
he'll get to it. He'll get to
absolutely.
it.
Austin won't let me forget.
He can watch it. He's got my Voodoo password. I've got it on there. He'll watch it eventually.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to agree with the group that this belongs on the A tier for sure. I mean, in my opinion, Christian Bale gave one of the best performances of the decade in that movie. I mean, the fact that he can take it from 1 to 100 in just a matter of minutes, scenes, and it's just the fact that you can really rely on what he's saying. He's a reliable narrator. He's the narrator that you can't rely on based on what you see, and you can't even really tell by the end of the movie what was real and what was not, as evidence at the end of the scene. So like, I definitely give in, like you were mentioning, we give Willem Dafoe, Chloe Sevigny, Reese Witherspoon, Jared Leto, Paul Allen. I mean, that's hit me square scene. Come on, it's the one. It's the one scene I will, if it's ever on YouTube, I will watch that over and over and over and over again. Sick mind not bearing, but for sure, I do agree that this belongs in the A tier.
All right. Well, it's going to be all A's, and it's going to stay in the A tier.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go, Adam. You are justified in your.
I wanted to have something that would just be easy for everybody.
Sure. Why not?
That's a solid choice.
All right, so, Mark. What would you like to talk about next, sir? What do you got?
Yeah.
Okay. I think much as I had said earlier that we shouldn't have Scream without Halloween. Let's just put Halloween in the S tier. I mean, I wasn't sure because I didn't know if I had anything fresh to say about Halloween, but I realized that I do, and that is that even though, like me personally, there are a couple of movies that I like better than Halloween, not because Halloween isn't as good, but just because there are elements that I react to better. But I feel like one of that Carpenter, and he deserves to have 2 in the top 10. That Carpenter from the opening, when he demonstrates that Michael Myers has been a killer since a child. In a sense, he's throwing down the gauntlet and saying, anything can happen here. That taboos that might have been present in other horror films are not going to come into play, or at least they could. That they could get violated, even if maybe they ultimately don't. That all through the movie, the children that Jamie Lee Curtis is babysitting could be endangered. Now, most of the time we figure, okay, a Hollywood film is not going to kill a child, but we're figuring there's a chance he might. Like, I think in our 70s episode, I had insisted on having Black Christmas in S tier because Black Christmas walked so that Halloween could run. But boy, does Halloween run. And again, last year I was going on a run of drive-ins within a 100-mile radius, and I think they had, a couple of them were doing revivals of Halloween, so I watched it like 2 or 3 more times, and it still was just rock solid perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Austin, what do you think?
Yeah, Halloween still works. I've seen this one in a theater several times. I put it on every year. I put it on even if it's not Halloween. Halloween just holds up almost like no other, slasher movie, almost because it's not a rampaging slasher movie like the recent Halloween Kills is. It's a movie that takes its time. It ramps up the suspense. The music itself is iconic. There's no other way to say it. The music is iconic. It is the theme of Halloween. Not only is Halloween, that Halloween music is Halloween. Everybody knows it. You talk about, Mark, how Halloween runs, but Michael Myers does not, but he doesn't need to because it's all about, it's all about that terror and suspense. And it's still just, man, it just works, man. When he's just standing, when Laurie Strode just looks out and he's standing by the laundry and just standing there, it's just the haunting imagery of that movie. It just works. And it doesn't have to be, he doesn't have to be killing people left and right. He doesn't have to have a body count of 20 or 30. It can just be him stalking these few people, and it's the night he came home, and he just wants to go home, and I can't blame him for that. So, Halloween S tier. It's the granddaddy that every movie of this genre kind of aspires to be.
Yeah, and Halloween is a movie that I watched recently, not for the first time. I gave it a rewatch. I've seen Halloween multiple times because I love Halloween, but probably it's one of my like in my top 5 favorite movies from the 70s. Like I really love this movie, and I was watching an episode, and I got to give them credit. I was watching an episode of the Movie Guys, their movie nonsense, and they were comparing Halloween Kills to the original one, and they brought up some really great points that I never really thought about before. It's just the way that like some of the cinematography in the movie is, and the way that the camera's filmed. It's just like a really, really cool. They showed the shot of the girls, all the babysitters. They're walking down the road, and then you see them walking to the distance, and the camera slowly pans out, and then boom! All of a sudden, you're in a first-person view of Michael Myers. You can hear the like slow breathing and stuff. It's just really cool, like all the little things that they do, or like kind of like Austin said, where they're all sitting in the living room, and then it pans out, and you see him standing over by the laundry. You just see Michael Myers' shoulder. You just see his shoulder, and that's all you need to just just be really terrified, really creeped out, and you just see him slowly stalking his victims, as opposed to in the recent Halloween Kills, he just kind of going all out. There's probably the most kills I've ever seen in a Halloween movie, but I still enjoyed Halloween Kills for what it was. The original Halloween though, like he just did so much for the slasher genre. Like he was one of the very first slashers, maybe not the first, but he's up there, and like they just did a really amazing job with the way that the movie was just made overall. So yeah, I gotta say S tier all the way. Yeah. Steve, what do you think?
S tier, baby. Any movie that has Scream on it should have Halloween on it, as we were talking about. These movie goes hand in hand with another fact. The fact that they got featured, the movie itself got featured in Scream should be S tier material. Score, iconic. Direction, seamless and masterful. Cinematography by Dean Cundy. That opening shot, the first time that a Steadicam was ever used, ever.
Yeah.
And to successfully and to a very shocking degree.
I'm sure that they weren't very light either. They're probably big old heavy.
And then big old boys, they're big old boys that weigh like bricks on your chest.
Yeah.
I've had cameras like those on for shows like that, so I can just only imagine what the downgrade was. Brick House, aka Brick House, that's what it was called. Yeah, I mean, you know, without Halloween, you wouldn't have Scream. And then what would we be talking about? We'd be just holding each other's hands, singing "Kumbaya." Yeah.
Sure.
So for sure. Oh, one thing I want to mention that doesn't get brought up enough is the lighting in Halloween.
Oh yeah.
The lighting is masterful, and most masterfully used is the fact that you don't see Michael Myers standing behind Laurie Strode before she gets stabbed, and you slowly see the face fade from the darkness into the light until he comes down and just slashes her arm, and she just falls down the stair. Not enough is talked about the lighting of Halloween. Masterful. S tier. Let's go.
Yeah. Adam, what do you think?
Yeah, I love Halloween.
Not much to add, right? Halloween is fucking Halloween, right? Yeah.
Well, the thing that is great about it is, part of the reason I love Halloween is because I discovered it out of order when I was younger. Saw Halloween 2 first, then saw Halloween and was blown away that it was a better movie. I was like, wow, this gets better. And I own every single one of those movies on DVD or Blu-ray, including the Rob Zombie movies. I like how uneven and crazy the franchise gets. Halloween Kills is ridiculous, but I had fun watching it too.
I did too.
But this
it's
original,
bonkers, but it's awesome bonkers. I love
like that's a Michael Myers is pissed off movie, but so is Halloween 2 and the Rob Zombie movies are Michael Myers is pissed off. This original one is he's just living his life, you're getting in the way. That's all. You're just getting in the way. And it's like if you run across like a grizzly bear, or if you're going hiking, you're not going to walk towards the grizzly bear. And, if you walk away slowly, hopefully it'll lose interest in you. But that's what I like about the original film is it doesn't feel like a vendetta. he is what he is. He's this anomaly in nature in a lot of ways, both in the way he, is a presumptive psychopath and the fact that, he doesn't speak and he can survive getting shot multiple times. But the way the film's put together on such a shoestring budget, very impressive. And the legacy of the film speaks for itself. But it's just whenever I watch it, despite the fact that I know every single frame, I always get transported back. The limited dialogue in this film goes a long way for me. There's so much that happens in this that is
less is more
about experience and atmosphere. So S tier all the way. It belongs there.
He's a shark.
Yes,
right.
He is.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the shark stalking.
And I honestly think he could take Jaws, no problem, with just a knife.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's a clean sweep, Jordan, for Halloween, so it's kind of up there with Flying Thing right now, kind of hovering around there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, don't throw it up there, but Austin, you're up again. So
God, there's so many damn good movies on this list. I mean, holy shit. Where do we go? All right, I'm gonna go to a movie that. All right, I think. All right, it's time for a zombie movie. Not a Rob Zombie movie, a zombie movie. And although there is a Rob Zombie movie on consideration here, but I'm not going to go with that. If we're going to do a zombie movie, I got to go with the granddaddy of the zombie movies, the one that everybody wants to be, the one that everyone aspires to be. Still holds up, still looks great on my 4K Blu-ray that I picked up. Giorgio Romero's Dawn of the Dead, I think, is where it's at. And look, it took this concept from Night of the Living Dead. 10 years later, he amps it up. He gets Tom Savini doing the zombie effects, and the movie just has this unique look. I mean, I see people talk about when they see it first, they go, "Man, why does everything just look weird?" And I'm like, I don't think it looks weird. I think it looks 70s and it looks unique and amazing. And there's never been anything like it. It's just a wonderfully contained film that you can tell there's things going on in the broader sense, but we focus on these four characters. We get to know them. We get to know, their philosophies on life. We get to see what they would really do in a situation like this. And it's really the template for everything, every trope that every zombie movie would follow after it, of survival situations. And I think if we're going to do any zombie movie on this list, I mean, I'm including, the remake of with Zack Snyder, all that kind of stuff. They all just they take things from this movie, and without it, I just wouldn't think we have these other ones. And if we're going to talk the all timers, I think you got to go to the ones that started it. So Dawn of the Dead, S tier.
Yeah, and this one's tough for me because it's like part of me wants to give it an S tier, but at the same time, part of me doesn't, just because in a lot of ways I prefer the remake almost more sometimes. But like it just depends though. Like it's like the remake might be Zack Snyder's best movie, maybe, but for the original though, like it's definitely a product of its time because for me the effects don't really hold up too much, but it's the writing, it's the cast, and like even seeing the zombies with that kind of bad makeup, it almost kind of adds to the effect though. Kind of makes it more fun.
It's the charm of the film that they're like these gray zombies, and like the blood is bright red when they get shot, and it just I think that the charm of it is what sets it apart from Zack Snyder's movie, which uses CGI blood and they're running all over the place. And yes, I know that the pace is faster and maybe a little more up some people's alley, but to me the looming dread of the lurking zombies, that they're always just there and around,
always there.
It just gives me more tension than you just constantly running from something. That's just me personally. But yeah, anyway, sorry, Joe, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're fine. But I'm really trying to put myself into like the 70s, like what would it be like to like be alive in that time, to go see it in the theaters for the first time. Like it'd be like a pretty fun time and a pretty like terrifying time too, like a mix of those two. So I mean, but I think just by a razor thin margin, I got to go A tier. I think that it belongs at the top of the A, but I got to go A, I think. So, Steve, what do you think?
So I honestly, there's a movie that I like that I want to pick up for my next pick, and argue for it to be in the S tier, though I doubt many of the panel would agree with me. But I'm juggling between an S and an A with Dawn of the Dead, because I do agree that there should be a zombie movie in the S tier, but I just think Austin picked the wrong zombie movie in my opinion, and not Rob Zombie. But don't I've only seen this movie maybe twice, and it does have an appeal. It does have very good. It has the charm, and it has Tom Savini doing the makeup effects, and just a goofy ass sequence where basically zombies are kind of like getting stuck in an escalator. I mean, you can't beat that. Zombies not knowing how an escalator works, and you're just like, I'm gonna give it an A tier.
Yeah, sounds fair enough. Adam, what do you think?
Dawn of the Dead's terrific. It took a long time for that follow up to come out, and to Night of the Living Dead, and Night of the Living Dead, definitely is the one that started it all with zombies. But Dawn of the Dead is, I think, what really codified our modern interpretation of zombies and the way the zombie apocalypse works, and the things we would do to have fun in the zombie apocalypse. You know, all things that we know about this genre you can trace back to these first two Romero films specifically. Day of the Dead as well to an extent, but I think Dawn of the Dead and Night of the Living Dead are singular in what they did, distinct from each other as well. This is another one that is very brightly lit, which I think is what makes it unique, and also is fitting with the title. We have to stare at the blood and guts, and even though it is cheesy primary colors for a lot of it, this is also the first one where we start seeing the intestines and all that kind of stuff, and you get even more of that in Day of the Dead, all that nasty glop that makes this genre so fun. So with Dawn of the Dead, my heart, puts this movie very high up on a lot of lists. When we're talking all time, I will say A tier, just because we need a little breathing room, but also because I mean it. The Night of the Living Dead would be S tier for me if we were talking 60s movies as well, if they were on here. Dawn of the Dead's right on the cusp. It's got a lot on its mind. It's well written, great characters, does a lot with its budget, and the genre owes it a lot. But I think it's just, again, right on the cusp for me. So I'll say A.
Yeah, fair enough. Mark, what do you think for Dawn of the Dead?
This one is very difficult for me as well because, on the one hand, I want to acknowledge influence and staying power and all of the innovations that it's done, but I also don't want to have the S tier, choked up with 70s and 80s stuff, and I'm trying to be more egalitarian and spread the love around a little. Among other things, besides everything that Adam brought up, I think one of the most frightening things about Dawn of the Dead is that it introduced me to the gonk and other library music. So, so I, in principle, I would say S tier, but yeah, I am going to lean into A tier simply because, again, not all the best ideas came in the 70s.
Yep. Sounds good. Well, it sounds like it's going to stay down in the A tier, probably. Maybe
it's got the same votes as Silence of the Lambs, so yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We'll throw it there, but I guess it's my turn, and I got to start going for a couple personal picks because the S tier is looking kind of full, and I just want to see if anyone would agree with me. But so I got to shoot for the stars. But so I got to go with my the Scream franchise is my favorite franchise, but my overall individual favorite horror movie, just because it just hit me a certain way when I saw it, is Insidious. So I got to go with Insidious. I feel like we need some kind of supernatural one up there. So and also some ones from a newer decade, and Insidious just absolutely blew me away. I mean, James Wan, just the world that he created, which is really fun and imaginative. Just them going into the further and just seeing Patrick Wilson having to go after his son after he falls into essentially a coma, so to speak, with his spirit's been taken away to some other place, and it really freaked me out. And also, I'm a huge Lynn Shay fan when it comes to horror. I think she is really great in this as the Elise, like the lady that comes to help the family out. And yeah, like it's just a really cool and imaginative ride. And also the fire-faced demon just gets me every time. And like I've seen him a million times, and it just scares me every single time. That image of just him sharpening his claws, or when he appears behind Patrick Wilson, or even climbing on the walls down the hallway, like this movie just really scares me, and it's a PG-13 movie. It's not even R, and it still manages to scare me that bad. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Insidious and see what you guys think. Steve, what do you think?
For me, it's definitely not an S tier. If I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna be real
Yeah.
here. Out of all the 50 movies we got here, I'm putting this on the D list, on the D tier.
Ooh.
Only because it did not have as much of an effect as it did have on you, Jordan.
Mhm.
Doesn't take away its effect, its creativeness, its world building when it's using the further and Lin Shay and the lipstick demon. I mean, the fact that James Wan used a Tiny Tim song to creep people out.
Yeah.
Let
Oh, man,
alone that song
freaks me out.
by itself should have been in a horror movie a long time ago before this was. It gives it why I'm lifting it at which I was going to put in the F. I'm lightly putting it in the D because it didn't have that much of an effect on me, but I can definitely recognize what it's trying to do, and I think there's other superior horror movies that belong in the S tier and above. Yeah, so I'm putting it in a D tier there.
All right. Yeah. Even though it hurts a little, I totally understand. but Adam, what do you think?
So Insidious, when it came out, really landed. And then James Wan eclipsed himself with The Conjuring, which, like that first Conjuring film, I think that's what people think of when they think of James Wan horror now, more than Saw and more than Insidious even. But the thing I like about Insidious is there's a real sense of style, and it's a return to that it basically is the better Poltergeist remake, in my opinion. It's like we had the Poltergeist remake; it was not good, and then Insidious came out, and it was a very similar story, but told in its own way, with its own set of ghosts and monsters and whatnot, and I think Lin Shay is a great spiritual continuation of Zelda Rubinstein from Poltergeist.
Oh yeah.
So I there's a lot I like about this movie. Now I wouldn't put it down in D. I can't put it up in S though. If we're putting it on the entire spectrum of horror, I would give it a B because I like this movie and I like the sequel as well. I think after that it gets a little off the rails, but I think the demon and the bride especially are very, very memorable, frightening creations. And I've also had the pleasure many years ago. I went to Universal Horror Nights when they had an Insidious maze, and both of those MFers were in there chasing.
Oh shoot!
And it was quite an experience.
Thank you.
But yeah, Insidious is a haunted house attraction come to life, and it's rooted by good performances by Patrick Wilson, Lin Shay, and Rose Byrne especially. And the comic relief from Lee Winnell and what's his name? Who's I'm sorry, I forget his last name. Really
Sampson,
fun.
I think.
Yes,
Yeah.
Angus Sampson.
Yeah.
So I enjoy those characters as well. I'll give it a B, Jordan.
All right, sounds good. Mark, what do you think?
I still have not seen Insidious.
Oh, that's right. He had to abstain during that show. Yeah, he still hasn't seen it in the meantime.
Still abstaining.
That's right.
Okay.
All right.
You check it out though. Like definitely the argument for like a modern day poltergeist. I think that holds pretty true. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Austin.
I like Insidious, but I don't think I even voted for it in the S tier on that show, to be honest, if I remember right. And when it comes to this list, when I was doing my own personal rankings, there's about 35 movies that rank higher than it. So for that, I have to give it a C. So
Really?
yeah, it's not even
movies?
near. Yeah, I've got a lot of movies ahead of it that I would rather watch ahead of Insidious. I like it, but yeah, no.
All right. Well, where are we at then?
Yeah,
That was
S, a
low to
B, a
ask.
C, and a D. So it's kind of
Maybe like
BC
a
territory somewhere around there.
yeah. We could
Yeah,
just throw it in the
maybe
B and say
B
it's
is
at the
fine.
bottom of B, even though there's nothing in B. So,
Yeah, we'll see.
yeah.
All right, back around the
Well,
horn to Mr. Mesa,
yeah.
and I'm gonna keep
Yeah.
going here.
I'm gonna go for my zombie movie, Shauna the Dead.
Okay.
Shauna the
Let's
Dead
see. I know
is
it's. Oh, here it is.
Shauna the Dead, in my opinion, is one of the best. Not only one of the best horror movies of the decade, but one of the best movies of the decade of 2000s. That's my personal opinion. This I've never heard about Edgar Wright until everybody was talking about this. All the buzz coming out of, I believe it was Toronto, maybe Toronto. I could be
Yeah.
wrong. I don't know. I know it was out of a film festival. There was talks about Shaun of the Dead being like the zombie movie to go check out, and this was at a time where, you had I believe it was Dawn of the Dead was coming out around that same time. Well, it came out earlier in March, and this came out in September of stateside. So, I mean, great. It has an amazing soundtrack. A great cast with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, along with Bill Nighy, Penelope Wilton, and many more that I can't name off the top of my head. And the way that the movie is shot is amazing. The way I think it's brilliantly edited together. I think the best part about this movie is the way it's edited together, and it kind of it snaps along with its dialogue. The editing snaps along with the dialogue, and if a dialogue can snap along with the editing or can go hand in hand with the editing, it deserves top praise from me. So, Shaun of the Dead S tier.
Yeah. Sounds good. Adam, what do you think?
Shaun of the Dead was such a great announcement. Not like it gave Edgar Wright to the public at large. Brought Simon Pegg and Nick Frost to the mainstream, and I think it made British humor popular again, stateside, which is never a bad thing. Shaun of the Dead is also a sneaky good horror movie in its own right, even though it's a comedy. There are actual stakes in the movie, which I really love. There's emotional impact and characters die. It's not played for laughs in every single death. There are deaths that are played for laughs, appropriately so. But I think this movie is, even though it leans closer to parody than something like American Werewolf in London, it doesn't go all the way there, which makes it very unique. And it's a great movie that I love to revisit. Personally, when it comes to Edgar Wright, like for personal taste reasons, even though the horror genre is more my thing than action, Hot Fuzz has kind of grown up there in my estimation over the years a lot. And I find that movie just to be a little bit tighter and more efficient. But Shaun of the Dead is fantastic, and I would put it firmly in A tier. I don't have nitpicks or gripes, but I just know some of the things that I still don't see in S tier, and I would put them above Shaun of the Dead. But A tier all the way, no hesitation with that.
Yeah. Sounds good. Mark, what do you think?
So this was one of those situations where I was agonizing over the fact that I believe this should be an S tier. And immediately I'm thinking, okay, how can this be an S tier and Dawn of the Dead not be there? But I think much like Scream, it is not just specifically referencing Dawn of the Dead. It's referencing, dozens of zombie and living dead movies that came in its wake. And again, commenting, building upon it, and creating new mythology and creating something fresh and interesting and with real stakes and real emotions that much as I was commenting on Midsommar being the strongest of the 2010s to be worth putting in an S tier list for 50 years of horror, I would say the same thing about Shaun of the Dead. That it is both the ultimate rib and comment on the zombie film, but at the same time creating something new upon its basis as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Austin, what do you think?
Just want to point this out from Edgar Wright's Twitter a year ago. Double bill of the day. Dawn of the Dead, 1978, and Shaun of the Dead. Watch our film on its 16th anniversary paired with the movie. It would not exist without George Romero's extraordinary zombie apocalypse, Dawn of the Dead.
There you go.
He even uses the music in the opening with the Universal logo. Just want to point that out. All right, this is my argument for Dawn of the Dead. But not to disparage anything about Shaun of the Dead, which I still vote S tier for. So I just wanted to say that.
Worth saying.
I think if we're gonna have a horror comedy on this list out of the few that are available to pick from, yeah, it kind of has to be Shaun of the Dead, which works as a comedy and still works as a horror movie. I've had many a debate on this, even online in our own polls. People going like, Shaun of the Dead, it's not even a horror movie. I'm like, yeah, it is. It's a zombie movie, and it still works as such. Like, it absolutely is. Horror comedy is still horror. And, so, yeah, I would still put it up there. I still think it's, not only, again, one of the best zombie movies out there, it's one of the best movies of that decade, period. And, I'm down with it. And I'm kind of like Adam. I personally watch Hot Fuzz more, but that's not to disparage anything about Shaun of the Dead. That's just because it just clicks with me a lot. I watch it on the background a lot.
Yeah. Well, we'll point out that Shaun of the Dead was our number one for the 2000s, so it actually made the very top. So, this movie's great. Like, I'm going to give it an S tier as well. That I'm a huge Simon Pegg and Nick Frost fan. I love this whole trilogy, and I'm a big Edgar Wright fan. And Shaun of the Dead just works on so many levels. It works as a comedy, works as a horror movie. Yes, it's a horror movie, and works as British comedy, like kind of like Adam said, it kind of brought a British comedy kind of back in the United States, I'm of a similar vein. I kind of go with Hot Fuzz a little more. I actually have a really nice box set that has all these extended behind the scenes from Hot Fuzz. But it'd be nice if I had one for Shaun of the Dead, which I do plan to look for soon. But it's a lot of fun though. So I had a fun time. I laughed quite a bit, and I cringed quite a bit as well with all the different zombie kills. There were some pretty creative ones too in the movies. So I'm gonna agree with the S tier for Shaun of the Dead.
All right. Well, it's a 4 and a 1, and right around the same as Jaws and Scream, actually, as far as votes go. Yeah.
So I'll move it up one there, and we'll see how it falls. But all
right, Adam.
We're back to Adam.
Okay, so I may only be able to submit one or two more selections myself, so I want to make them count. And I'm going to go for this one. Which one do I pick first? I'll go with The Exorcist. S tier.
All right. See, where's it at? Oh, here it is. Okay.
Bottom middle, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, what do you say? Say S tier for Exorcist.
So The Exorcist is S tier for me for so many reasons. I have a long relationship with this movie. I discovered it way too young. I am a secular adult who grew up in a Christian household. So when I saw this movie, it was not with the permission of my parents. My sister had rented it. My mom was mowing the lawn, and I watched it in broad daylight, and that did not help. I believe the devil was literally going to come possess me. after seeing that movie. So when I saw that as a kid, I took it very literally, right? And then I watched it again as I got older in middle school, high school, college, beyond. I read the novel. I've seen the sequels, the prequels, which is a whole separate discussion. But when it comes to The Exorcist itself, now the dust has settled, and I've seen this movie more times than I can count. And it's still a thrill to watch, and it has lost none of its impact, even though I don't take it literally anymore. And that is a testament to this movie. I think what it gets right in terms of horror isn't that demons are going to come possess us and ruin our lives. It's the things that are out of our control, whether they be literal demons or, in the case of being a parent, a sickness taking over your child, something that's resonated with me a lot since I've become a dad, and when I watch this film, it works on so many different levels. If you happen to be a person of faith, I think there's a lot you can get out of this movie. If you're someone of another faith or of no faith at all, I think there's a lot to get out of this film. Just in terms of the way we relate to each other, whether we're priests, scientists, parents, children. And the thing that's scary to me to this day when I watch this film is how unnatural what we're seeing is. It's not right, and it doesn't feel right the entire time. And the way it's built up is so suspenseful. So I love the score. I love the way it's shot. I like the original cut. I like the cut that was re-released in theaters with the extra footage. I got no qualms with either. And I know that this is David Gordon Green's next big project, and we'll see how that goes. But this original film will always stand on its own as a transcendent masterpiece, in my opinion. And whenever I hear someone say, I finally saw The Exorcist and it wasn't scary, I'm like, I will admit that is like one of my biggest pet peeves when I hear that comment. It's like, it's not about it like literally scaring you to death. Like, just pay attention. It's a drama as well. Like, I love this movie. So, there you go.
Yeah. Mark, what do you think?
Oh, well, after that build up, I feel kind of bad when I come forward to say that I'm only going to give it an A tier. I was raised extremely Catholic. And this movie is the greatest recruitment tool that the Catholic Church has ever had. I think my problem was that I came of age when this movie was the rage, and where where this was at the height of the counterculture, and parents who in real life were seeing their children going off in marches and flipping off police and wondering, what happened to our kids, and, finding a convenient excuse in satanic panic. That I had seen like all the parodies, the Mad Magazine, the Saturday Night Live, before I had seen the film. So I think that kind of diluted the effect. I still really like the film. To me, it's more of a detective drama than a horror film, in the sense of, as in Sherlock Holmes, once you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. I've always had this kind of fraught relationship with the movie, in that it is a movie that I enjoy and I respect, but it just has not unsettled me. I understand why it unsettles other people, and on that basis alone, I got to take my hat off to it. But I think I have to hold firm at A tier, that it just never quite kicked me over the hump like it did millions of other people. Even though I adore it, if it's in revival, I'll go see it. I remember when the longer version came out in Westwood, and I went with a packed audience, most of whom had never seen it, and they were losing their minds, and I felt great.
Yeah, that sounds like a good time. But Austin, what do you think?
I'm right on the border, kind of like Mark, because on the one hand, every possession movie wants to be The Exorcist, and none of them have been The Exorcist. They're all pale imitations. Even stuff like The Conjuring that tries to do it at the end. Every Exorcist sequel never quite get there. On the other hand, it's like the Beatles for me personally, where I respect the Beatles. I like some of the Beatles songs, but they're not one of my personal favorite bands. Exorcist is amazing, and yet it's not one of my personal favorite horror films. And it still works for me as a horror film, and everything still unsettles me. But like, if you were to look at my list, it comes down to which ones do I go back and watch all the time, and Exorcist is not really one of them. So only for that reason, and I know we had it obviously in the S tier on our 70s show, because compared to a lot of other 70s movies for me, yeah, it's S tier and it's great. When we're talking about all timers, A tier. I'm kind of like Mark, and that it's only for that reason, and it's not to disparage Exorcist. It's just because it's not one of my personal favorites.
Yeah. Well, for me, like, so I saw this movie when I was in high school, or actually, I think just after high school, actually. But I watched it with my best friend that I grew up with, and like we went in with a bad attitude. Like I mentioned this on our 70s episode, but we went in with a bad attitude. Like, this isn't going to scare us. We're like everyone says it's the scariest movie of all time. Well, we'll see or whatever. And so we watched it, and it didn't scare me. But I think it's because I went in with a bad attitude, and I feel like I need to rewatch it because I haven't gone back to it since. But I need to rewatch it and put myself in the actual time frame of the 70s. I need to do that with a lot of movies, but yeah, I think The Exorcist is actually great, and if I think back, the movie, the thing that actually scares me is the demon Pazuzu. Like, just looking at that face just really creeps me out, and kind of like Adam said, it's more than just a horror movie. It's a great drama too. There's a lot of things you can learn from so many different uh, perspectives. I grew up Christian, so it does resonate with me a little more. And yeah, like I think that we're talking greatest of all time. If you ask people what's the scariest movie of all time, I feel like the majority of people are probably going to say The Exorcist. Like, it's just known to be that movie that really was unsettling to so many people. So I think that it deserves a spot on the S tier. It might be a little lower on the S tier for me, but I'm going to give it an S tier. But so yeah, Steve, what do you think?
Steve?
I'm gonna have to. I agree. S tier. Exorcist belongs in the S tier. Um, I I I am a Catholic, so
Yep,
yeah. So
that'll
you
do
can
it.
imagine. Yeah, you and my parents try to warn me away from this movie too. I mean, but they're not super Catholic, but they're of in the area where they were like really going to church often, so they kind of like talking about devil possession and everything. I was just a child, didn't think of anything of it. I popped this movie. I rented it with my own money without my parents knowing about it. So I took that and just hit it like. And just watch it at like 11 o'clock at night in my personal room, and holy fuck, scared
Yeah.
it's literally scared the Jesus out of me. Um, and, yeah, man, it was terrifying to me, and it's still kind of terrifying now, even without the possession. You think about how children are getting sick with COVID, and you can relate to what's going on with Reagan, even though the audience knows it's a it's devil possession, but you don't know, you don't really know until the shit hits the fan, and she starts fucking spider walking down the stairs, and you're like, oh shit, this ain't no god, this ain't no sickness, this is demon possession. I'll tell y'all. And I also I have to say I have a little bit of favoritism because I did take a picture in front of the Reagan household. Hey, I was in
Okay.
Washington. They had the plaque. Had to do it. So with that being said, yeah, for sure. May the power of Christ compel. Everybody doesn't put The Exorcist in the S tier.
Right.
All just aside, so that's my reason why I put it in the S tier.
Yeah. So what do we have? We have 3 S's and 2 A's.
It's 3 and 2s. It's exactly the same as Midsommar right now. And
Yeah, so
again,
just
we'll
leave it
see
where
if
it's at
there's
for now.
any. Well, yeah, we'll see if there's any other movies that get more S votes to knock it out. But we'll see.
What we're gonna do
keep going.
is we're gonna go and let everyone on the ladder have their last pick, and then we'll probably kick it over to the Hail Mary round maybe after that. But
Yeah.
But Mark, you're up next. So what do you want to go with?
This is this is a tough one. But
By the way, that thumbnail at the top is supposed to be Alien, not Aliens, just for consideration. So.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
We had Aliens on there.
No, because
No, we had
Aliens is
Alien on the
86, same
70s.
year as The Fly.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay. Yeah, because I was thinking like I
Yeah.
just want people we're talking more about aliens, but we can just say it's Alien then.
Yeah. Sorry, just a proxy, much like on the Jordan Peele one. But yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Not just
Sorry,
about
just wanted to make that
aliens,
clarification.
I thought it did.
We didn't even talk about aliens on that show.
Wow.
No, well, we're working through decades with embarrassments of riches. We lose things along the way.
Yeah.
Okay, well, for mine, I'm gonna step away from S tier, and I'm gonna suggest something for A tier, simply because even though this is one of my personal S's, I know that you can't have everything, and we have to think about posterity. But I've got to have it in. I got to have this in the A tier, and that is Dario Argento's Suspiria. I mean, this is the one, as opposed to The Exorcist, that has consistently rattled me year after year. And I feel like just everything that could have been, that it's the apex of all sorts of types of filmmaking at the time, not just of what Argento was doing, but of just the very notion of doing post-dubbed dialogue. That we've seen dozens of overseas filmed movies where people looped their dialogue and it all sound canned and quiet with very little room tone. But in Suspiria, it works because it feels like it's a dream. Like I've had dreams where I'm opening my mouth and it sounds like somebody else's voice is coming out of it. That it is just such a consistent and singular vision of terror, of nightmare logic, and I know that the worm is finally turned in the 21st century of people appreciating it. But I do kind of wish that it had found its tribe sooner, because of just how terrific it is. But I'm glad everyone has found it now.
Yeah, absolutely. Austin, what do you think?
I went with S2. I remember on our 70 show for Suspiria, because it was the best out of the Italian horror movies that I had watched for that show, and it was one I came to a little later. I do like Argento, but I'm still kind of starting my journey on the Italian horror train. I've only kind of started it about 2 or 3 years ago. So for that reason, just because for me personally, a lot of these movies still feel like homework when I watch them, and I'm not super invested in them, personally, when I do watch them. I would put it in like a B tier on the overall of all time. But again, that's just more of a personal thing where I've only started getting into Italian horror fairly recently. It's like discovering something that I'm still trying to have a bigger appreciation for, some of those movies.
That's fair, but I wouldn't even talk about this as Italian horror. I would just talk about this as horror.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I understand. It's just, you know, if it means anything, my favorite Italian horror movie so far that I've seen, just because it's so bonkers and crazy, has been Demons. But that's, you know, a whole nother discussion for another thing, just because it's batshit crazy. But that's just more of my taste. That's all. So, yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Well, for me, I have to abstain because I have not seen it, but I do have a question. So that they did a remake of Suspiria. I know it's not as probably as beloved as the original, but is the remake in English or is it in Italian?
It's American. It's in English.
It's mostly in English, but there are other languages too.
Okay,
yeah.
But it has subtitles.
I was kind of curious, but
the remake is a very interesting film because it is kind of like a ground floor reinvention of elements and ideas from the original. So it's not just restaging the same sequences. I mean, they built a completely different house.
Oh, okay. Well, when I watch them, I'll definitely start with the original. So that's definitely on my list to watch. But yeah, I'll abstain here. Steve, what do you think?
I'm going to give this a B. To be honest with you, I am not a big fan of Italian horror movies. It's just I guess I've seen more bad than good, I guess. But out of all the ones I've seen, Suspiria is the best one. But of the genre itself, I'm not a big fan of, so that's why I'm giving it a B. But also the dubbing throws me off. Like if they talk a mile a minute and I can see they're a little bit behind. It's a little bit of a pet peeve for me. But good Lord, the score! Holy shit! I mean, we're gonna put I think in terms of score, you got Halloween, Suspiria, and Dawn of the Dead in a top tier 70 horror scores of all time, in my opinion. And the fact and just bonkers, just bonkers imagery. Just imagery that are literally ripped from the nightmare or dreams of Argento.
Yeah. Sounds good. But Adam, what do you think?
Yeah, I really like Suspiria. I like the remake too, which is a separate discussion because they're honestly quite different, even though they have a lot of themes in common. So the original Suspiria is one of the most lusciously colorful films from the 70s or any other decade. It is so starkly photographed in all the best ways you can imagine, and I agree with Mark's point about it being incredibly dreamlike throughout. It's anchored by a really good performance from Jessica Harper, and I just like that the mystery is preserved throughout, and we never get any real firm answers. On a certain day, I would make an argument for this, even possibly for S tier, because I think Suspiria did so much heavy lifting for the genre that people who are still catching up with it don't even realize. And that's why you had Luca Guadagnino, after directing an Oscar-nominated film in Call Me by Your Name, he can do anything he wants, and he wants to do his passionate remake of Suspiria, where he has his own take on it and does some really cool stuff with it. And they're great companion pieces because they're different in so many ways. So A tier all the way, S tier on a good day for me, but I don't want to complicate things. So A tier.
Sure. Well, we're the votes.
And the soundtrack by Goblin is amazing.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty much right where it's already at right now, kind of low A tier. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that sounds good. So,
all right.
I believe you're up, Austin. So
yeah, man.
Still a lot of
all right.
good ones left.
I know it says a lot when my 3 favorite horror movies of all time are all remakes. but it's because they're all the best versions. They're all the best remakes that have ever been made. So I'll bring up the last of the three that probably hasn't been brought up yet, at least in my personal top three. And that's Philip Kaufman's 1978 adaptation of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which I think is a absolute masterpiece of paranoia suspense. It is. Cannot tell you how many times I've watched this movie over the last 3 years, probably because I've shown it to almost everybody that steps into my door. I ask them if they've seen Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and I just subsequently show them. And it's a movie that it has one of the creepiest atmospheres in any movie ever. I mean, there's stuff where Donald Sutherland, just these shots of him walking around San Francisco with people staring at him, and he's just looking around, and there's this thumping soundtrack, and it's just like you just feel his fear and his paranoia, and just the thing that scares me the most, and I've talked about this on past episodes, is not monsters or people with knives or whatever. It's not being able to trust the people that you love and the people that you know, and them changing essentially what they are from one day to another, and fighting a losing battle, which this is. And the fact that it has that ending, that iconic ending of there's some things we just can't defeat, and there's evil out there that we just can't win. And it also has a moral conundrum of, well, I mean, we didn't win, but did we win by defeating, prejudice and arguing and fighting and, all going for the same goal? Who knows? It's a moral conundrum I think has been explored in every iteration of Body Snatchers. But this is the best version of that. I think it's just an absolute masterclass in horror, and especially sci-fi horror. So I'm going to shoot my shot for Invasion of the Body Snatchers and see what happens.
All right. Well, I saw Invasion of the Body Snatchers on your recommendation, Austin, and I loved it. I thought that it was great. Like, this movie blew me away, and just like all the little subtle things that you see, the little things that people are having to do, they're having to look over their shoulders constantly. They never know if one person's the real person or if there's somebody else, and then it also has a lot of social commentary too, just kind of like a lot of the like themes from the 70s time when it came out, and also the cast too. I mean, you have a young Jeff Goldblum, you have a Leonard Nimoy in there, so yeah, it's a lot of fun. Even Veronica Cartwright. Yeah, and just really haunting. Like, that's kind of a shocking ending a little bit. The kind of I didn't really see it coming. So and yeah, and also just the idea of these aliens coming down, but they're not the typical aliens that you think of. They're these little, like, almost microscopic aliens that just take over people, and yeah, they're really
they're not always little green men from other planets. An invasion can be through the back door with a microorganism, which is fascinating.
Yeah, that's really terrifying to think about. So yeah, I'm gonna say S tier for Invasion of the Body Snatchers for sure. Yeah. Steve, what do you think?
This is Philip Kaufman's masterpiece. Out of all the films that he's directed, this is his best film. And Jordan was talking about the cast. Down to Sutherland, Veronica Cartwright, who I believe her last horror movie was The Birds, and the next horror movie she did was Alien. So I might be, I believe I'm somewhat right around there. Also, let's not forget that cameos from the original star of the Invasion of Body Snatcher, Kevin McCarthy, and also the director Don Spiegel. Just puts it over the top that it's that this is a movie that they endorse and that they full-heartedly believe in. Creepy as fuck. Just the ending. Seriously, I don't think anybody can get that image out of their brain for at least a month, out of their minds with that
and the
image
sound that they make too.
That scream.
Yeah.
Just the thing nightmares are born out of. So S tier for sure.
Yeah. Adam, what do you think?
Yeah. I revisited Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 78 version, not too long ago. Big fan. And I Invasion of the Body Snatchers has not only itself been remade many times, literally, it is also effectively launched a subgenre in a lot of ways. So many movies. I mean, The Thing is very similar, thematically and premise-wise to Invasion of the Body Snatchers. But what this one does so right is it establishes very likable characters. You get a sense of their history together, why they care about each other, what it means, what loss means to them as it takes shape. This is neither here nor there, but I always used to get Brooke Adams and Jessica Harper confused. They look very similar. It's just funny that these movies both came up. Yeah, it's a great ensemble piece. A lot of great supporting performances. But Sutherland and Brooke Adams are the central characters, and they really drive the plot. Leonard Nimoy is great, as this authority figure. And once you slowly realize what's going on, things go different ways. And it's also got a distinct sense of humor. The movie doesn't quip at you the entire time, but it's genuinely funny at the right moments. Now, I think it is up there as one of the better horror movies. Definitely one of the better horror remakes. There's nothing bad I have to say about it necessarily, but if we're just going off of our gut here, I'll say A tier all the way, S tier 70s easily, S tier, all time. Knocking at the door of it, but I can't commit to S, so I will say A.
Sure. Yeah, fair enough. Mark?
I got to go with Adam. Again, definitely top in the 70s, but not quite S tier for the sheer fact of, weirdly enough, it's so effective that, I've seen it a couple times, but I never want to watch this movie again. I've been taken there, 2 or 3 times, and I don't want to go to that place.
Maybe I just have a dark like outlook on life that I go back to this movie so much. I'm just like, you know what? We just can't win. No matter what you do, you just can't fucking win. So I just see a movie like that, and I'm like, yeah.
It's like the metaphorical Big Brother locking me in the closet. Okay, I've done it. I've survived it. I can appreciate, its effectiveness, but please don't put me in there again.
Yeah, right. Yep, sounds good. Well, so that's 3 S's and 2 A's. So it's about right.
Still the same as The Exorcist and Midsommar. Yeah, again. We're going to play around with these. We'll see what happens in the Hail Mary round as well, because there's other movies we haven't even mentioned yet that could get, sweeping S votes when they're mentioned. So we'll see. So Jordan, why don't you get? Well, no, I was going to say, I'm sorry, Jordan. You get your final pick, and then we'll move to that round and see what else we need to mention.
Yeah. And also, there's a case to be made that maybe one of the top of the A tier might get bumped up to S if we don't find another S. So we'll see. But yeah, let's see. I'm going to take one last look at it because I think I know what I want to go with, but let me just take one more look. Yeah, I think so if I can't get my Insidious pick up there, I got to go for the next best thing, and that's Poltergeist. So I'm going to shoot my shot for Poltergeist. Poltergeist was probably one of the first horror movies I ever saw as a kid, and it really truly terrified me. Just like some of the shots, like in the cereal box, and then you have the shot when the mom walks out of the room and then comes back in. All the chairs are stacked up. or the guy in the mirror where his face is melting away, and then just the way that they did the whole the little girl getting trapped in the other dimension, and then having the like crazy lady come in to try and communicate with her was a lot of fun. And then just when you think that it's over, there's a whole third act that comes out at you, and there's a lot of terrifying things there too. And I think overall that it's a lot of fun. Definitely has some Spielberg influences all over it. It wasn't directed by Spielberg. I always forget the actual director of it, but
Toby Hooper, baby.
yeah,
Texas Chainsaw. The one you
Toby
hate.
Hooper. The Toby Hooper movie that I really do like compared to the other one. But yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna say S tier for Poltergeist, and we'll see what you guys think. Steve?
I'm gonna say A tier. I'm respectful of the movie. I'm respectful of the groundbreaking, the effects in that movie. But for me, that I was a latecomer to that movie. I didn't really come into it till unfortunately that I had to watch all the bad Poltergeist movies to get to the good ones.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know if it's a little PTSD that I'm having where I'm like, oh no, Poltergeist 3, not again. But I mean, anything that has Craig T. Nelson in it, I mean, it's instantly it's a good movie for if you have Craig T. Nelson in it. Zelda Rubinstein, Beatrice Straight, Joel Beth Williams. It's a very good cast, a very great cast that doesn't have good names to it. But if you're like, oh, it's that guy from that movie, or it's that woman from that movie, it's basically full of people in that movie. And I don't know about you. I think Spielberg pretty much directed half of it, in my opinion. That's my theory.
Yeah.
Because he really his hands was in that movie, if I can say so myself. I mean, it's a Spielberg movie without being directed. Wink, wink.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Poltergeist, A.
Yeah. Adam, what do you think?
As I was saying earlier, I love Poltergeist. Watched it a lot growing up. I really like the sequels too. The second one more than the third, but I like both of them. I just this original movie though, it's fun. It's fun. It's got a lot of heart to it. You care about this family, and when I went back to watch this film as I got older, I really found myself identifying with the parents, not only as a parent but just as an adult who's been in relationships. I really love the relationship of Craig T. Nelson and JoBeth Williams in this movie. And it's established so efficiently early on that they really do love each other. They know still how to have fun with each other. And that's why you understand how strong they are together throughout this movie. I would say this is S tier 80s. For me, what puts it at the highest possible A is that there are just a couple more films that really just reach that upper echelon that is just hard to articulate, and I can't quite give you reasons why it doesn't deserve that. But it's a fantastic movie, and even though some of the effects are of their era, I think it holds up really well because of the performances and the heart at the center of the story. And if people haven't seen the sequels, watch them. But the remake is no good.
Yeah. No use watching the remake where they use like fake plastic skeletons and just really cheap effects that even though they had a bigger budget. It's weird. Yeah, but
I'm for most of the same reasons that Adam gave. I'm putting this in the high A's. That it is definitely a terrifically emblematic film of what 80s horror meant to people and what the themes that were big at the time. And I do enjoy it, but there's just something about it that I don't think it's quite God level.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, for sure. Austin, what do you think?
Yeah, I'll keep it short for time's sake. I'm in the A tier as well. I have a higher Toby Hooper level on, or one in my personal list. You could probably guess what it is.
Sure, yeah.
All right, all right.
Well,
all right. This is what we're gonna do. We're gonna do this, and
exactly.
then hopefully do this within the next 10 minutes, so we can get Adam his picks and get him out of here. So we have a new way of doing the Hail Mary round. I'm sorry, Jordan. I didn't mean to cut you off.
What the final votes are? I just want to.
It's the same as like Silence and Dawn. It's 1 and 4, which is the same as Silence and Dawn right now. Yeah, so right around there. So the way we do it, just to speed things up, and what helps is that we're just going to go around the horn, and for sake of this list, just we'll get everybody to name what they think are still the S level movies on the table on their lists. And then what we will do is, if there is crossover, we will go back and quickly rank the crossover movies. Does that make sense? So if multiple people mention, let's say a Texas Chainsaw, let's say an Alien, whatever the case may be, then I will jot those down, and we will go back and quickly do 10, 20-second, rankings and see what everybody thinks of those movies quickly, so we can get through all those. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Everything makes sense? Okay, so I'm just looking for crossovers. I will write down every movie you say, so just rattle them off. I'm going to write them all down. I will look for the crossovers, and then we'll go from there. Fair enough? But for this list, for time's sake, we're not going to shoot for A. We're going to shoot for S. If there's anything on there you think is S, throw it out there. All right, so we'll start with Steve at the bottom down here. So you can say as many as you want. There's no limit, but go for the ones that you have on your personal S list. I will just say that.
Do I name one at a time, or like what?
Just one, as many as you want, but you can name all of them. But just give them to me fairly slowly, just so I can jot them down and have my crossovers.
All right. So for my S's, for the remaining S's on my list, so I made it 10. I got Get Out, Alien, and The Shining.
All right, Get Out, Alien, and Shining. All right, excellent. All right, Steve. Adam, how about you, sir?
Yeah.
I would echo all three of those.
Okay.
And I would also add A Nightmare on Elm Street, Candyman, and I believe there was one more on here. Yeah, you'll like this, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. All right, Mr. Mark, what do you got?
For mine, I would echo Candyman, the Blair Witch Project, and I suppose I'd have to throw in The Shining.
Okay.
All right. Awesome.
And on my list, I've got Alien as well. I also have The Shining, personally Cabin in the Woods, just for me personally, 28 Days Later, Gremlins 2, and Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah.
All right, Jordan.
Well, for me, I would probably, I would echo Aliens. I would put American Werewolf in London. Oh yeah, Alien. Sorry, yeah. Yeah, and then I would echo American Werewolf. I would say American Werewolf in London. I'd probably add Black Christmas to the list. Candyman. Let's see. Probably the Blair Witch Project. I'll throw in there, and The Shining. If we're going just S, there's a couple that I would say A, but if we're going just S, then that's what I'm gonna go.
Okay. So if y'all would talk amongst yourselves for about 30 seconds while I jot these down on my chart, all the crossovers I have, and then we will get into those quick rankings. Fair enough? So let me go down my list here.
It'll be interesting to see what happens because we're still short one on the S tier. So usually we already have the S all filled out by now. So
some of them may get bumped down depending on the votes. So we'll see.
My logic is 370s, 380s, 290s, a knots, and a teens.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
That's actually a pretty sound logic, yeah.
All right. Almost there. Just double checking here.
But it's tough though. There's a lot of these that are just so good. But
now, what I want to know is, are we going to do the 20s through the 60s at some point? Because that would be awesome.
It'd be something.
Jordan's going to watch.
Jordan's going to have a lot of
500 movies.
Right.
He's going to have a lot of blind spots on that one. He's seen Psycho, I think.
Like
that's
5
about it.
movies from all those decades combined, maybe. So
yeah, Psycho and maybe Dracula or Frankenstein, something like that. And that's about it. All right. Anyways,
a couple of Hitchcock ones, the birds and like the window, but that's.
I mean, it's not a bad idea as an excuse to keep us meeting together.
Sure.
Right. Do the 20s through the 60s, personally.
Yeah,
this is the best group to do it because we're probably the ones that have seen most of it, minus me, but the rest of y'all.
All right. All right. So these are going to be. I've got the 6, I believe, that had crossovers. So what we're going to do is we have 6 films. We will just quickly go up and down the ladder. Give me about 10, 15 seconds, not too much, just for time's sake, so we can get Adam's picks and get to the final rankings for these 6 films. All right, make sense? So I heard mentions of Alien, so we'll go up and down for Alien, starting with Steve. We'll just go the same order every time. Just everybody give me your personal ranking for that.
Yeah.
Aliens would be number 1 for me.
Alien, the first Alien, 79 Alien.
Yeah,
Ridley Scott, Sigourney Weaver.
Yes, Ridley Scott Alien. Yes.
For me, it's one of the S's. So that's my vote for sure.
Okay. Adam.
I just want to say I appreciate Steve's passion for Veronica Cartwright tonight. He's name checked her. She's a great actor, and I appreciate it. So S tier, Alien, S tier.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mark.
This is tough, but I'm A. Sorry.
Okay.
All right.
That's okay. Don't apologize. We're just getting the rankings. We'll see where we end up. S for me. Xenomorphs, maybe the greatest creature ever designed. Great stuff. Love space horror.
Well, now that I know that it's the original Aliens and not Aliens, because this is our horror championship, I got to go with an S. Yeah, for the original Aliens. Yeah.
All right. 4-1, so it makes the chart for now, and we'll play around with the rankings. But yeah. So it at least makes it up into the consideration. We might have more in the S tier after this. We'll have to see what gets bumped based on the past votes, things like that. We'll play around with that. Yeah. Next is The Shining. So Steve, or The Shining?
S.
Adam?
Yeah. I think we all avoided bringing this up because we thought someone else was going to mention it. S tier.
Sure. Mark?
S.
Yeah, I think it was number 1 on our 80s. Yeah, for sure. S. Yeah, for Shining.
Yep, S. Yep. I'm gonna say
all right. Well, clean sweep. Maybe because it was too obvious, so we just didn't bring it up. But it's got clean sweeps like The Thing and The Fly. It's right around there. Yeah. All right. One that got mentioned multiple times was Candyman from 1990. So, or 92. Excuse me. Steve.
A.
Adam?
S tier.
Mark?
S.
Compared to everything else, I really, really love it, and I loved going back to it. Overall, A.
Yeah. I gotta say S because I gave it a rewatch recently, and man, I liked it. There's a lot to love about it. So yeah, S.
All right. Okay, 3 S's and 2 A's, so it kind of scoots, for now, hovering around that bottom S tier. Again, we'll play around with these afterwards, but get through these rankings. I know this is going to get horribly skewed by the time we get to Jordan, but Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
Steve?
I'm gonna say B.
Okay.
Adam? I already stated my case. It's an S tier for me. Did a lot for
Mark.
A.
Yeah. S for me. Toby's best.
I won't be too mean on you guys because normally I want to give it an F, but I'm gonna give it a C, we'll say.
Aw,
Okay.
thanks.
All right. All right. Well, with those, it might end up at maybe high B, low A, something like that. But we don't even have to throw it up there if we don't want to, because it's not going to be in consideration for the finals.
At least we mentioned
Is
it,
that-
Austin. At least
we
got
mentioned
one.
it. We got to talk about it.
just throw it up
We
there.
had a whole on
Just for
our
fun.
70 show. At the end of the show, we had a whole long talk with Jordan about why Texas
put it
Chainsaw is awesome, and
Yeah.
and tried to convince
I
him
got a
at
stern
least
talking
otherwise.
to
That's-
about it, right?
that it's not the worst movie ever made, like he said. But anyways, two more real quick. We'll go with Jordan Peele's Get Out.
S.
I echo that. S. As yes. Love that film.
I'll go for the S. Screw it.
Yeah. Sure.
We gotta get that 2010s representation, Mark.
Yeah.
Well, that's what.
Yeah, Midsummer, yeah.
Does
They're the two
work as well
contenders
on-
for that decade, honestly. So we got.
Okay. Yeah. A for me, it doesn't work as well on rewatches for whatever reason. Yeah, A.
I think that like this would be an S. This wasn't the horror championship. Like if it was something else, I would say S. But I gotta say A for now.
Okay.
So
But 3 S's and 2 A's at least puts it into
that's okay.
consideration. So
yeah,
again, puts
I'll
it
still
into
throw it at
contention. So we'll get
at the
there.
bottom of it.
And then the final one I heard multiple comments on was the Blair Witch Project. So Steve.
I'm gonna say A.
Yeah, this one's an A for me.
Yeah, I mean, I put it up for S. I have to stick by it.
Yep.
Mhm.
Austin.
S for what it did for influentially. Personally, I have it at A.
Yeah. I'm gonna say S. It rank lower on my personal S tier, but I'll say S.
Okay. So 2 S's and 3 A's might put it near the top of A tier for right now because it's got a few more, one more S than a couple of those ones at the top of A tier. So we'll play around with this. All right. So now comes the fun part. We can only have 10 in that elusive S tier, and then with 3 honorable mentions down in the A's. So I'm only going on.
I was gonna just say real quick, Adam. If you got to run, you can run now. We're gonna rank the top 10. So if you think you have time to stick around, you can. But if you got to run, it's all good.
I do have an early call, guys, but it's been a pleasure, and I hope you'll have me back.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what would be your top 3 just before you leave? If you had to rank the top 3.
If I had to rank my top 3 in S,
yes.
For me, of all time, it would be The Shining, The Exorcist, and Halloween.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. We'll
just wanted to get that down when we're kind of debating those top spots right there, so we can
Absolutely.
have your opinion on that. All right. Well, where can we find you, and what would you like to plug, sir, before you head out? Please.
You can find me this coming Saturday on Video Drew's Network. Why Are We Like This? We do that every other Saturday. That's a fun show where we discuss exactly what the title is. But and then got a teams match releasing this week: Deception versus King Arthur. That'll be a good one. So definitely check that out. But I'll see you guys all before too long, I imagine. Mark,
yeah.
I'll be seeing you.
I'll be waiting.
All right, take care, guys.
Yeah, we'll see you. Thanks again.
All right. Excellent.
All right.
Thank you again, Adam, for hanging around. We appreciate it. All right. So I'm going to go back to my votes here. So the ones that had clean sweeps, I think, are the ones in the top 4 right now, which were The Fly, The Thing, Halloween, and The Shining. So those are definitely our 4. So as far as the individual of those 4, because we'll kind of work our way through this thing to figure it out. Maybe we'll go around the horn. What does everyone have as their personal number 1 out of those 4? Steve?
For me, it's Halloween.
Okay.
I would also have to go with Halloween.
Mine's The Thing. Jordan?
And mine would also be Halloween too, I think.
Okay,
So,
I think with that, Halloween moves up to number one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So out of these remaining three, what would be number two? And we'll go around the horn. Steve, this is kind of maybe the way we have to kind of work it. So one or the other type thing.
The Thing.
The Fly.
The Thing.
I would also go with The Thing.
Okay.
So, I think The Thing's number two.
All right. And maybe we'll just go around the horn, Shining or Fly. Steve.
I'm going to go with Shining.
Fly.
I will also go with The Fly. I watch it more.
I'm going to go with The Fly, yeah.
Okay,
So,
well, there we go. And number three, and Shining will stay at number 4 right there because it still had the clean sweep. So we had Jaws with a 4 and 1. We had Scream with a 4 and 1. We had Shauna the Dead with a 4 and 1. So all three of those will stay firmly in somewhere hovering around the 5 to 7 slot. So it may just be, as far as individually ranking these, out of the panel, Jaws, Scream, or Sean, which is the number one for you out of those, Steve?
Jaws.
Mark.
Oh, Jaws.
Yeah, Jaws.
I would go Scream for me.
Okay. Jaws stays there. So Scream or Sean? Steve. Scream or Sean?
Scream.
Yeah.
Mark.
Oh, Scream or Sean? Scream.
Yeah, same here. Scream.
Yeah,
I'm
Scream.
higher. Okay, cool. Well, they kind of stay the way they are right there. So there we go. Easy enough.
Right.
Yeah, those would pretty much be firm in our top 7. So this will be essentially out of the 6 remaining, which stay and which get bumped down to the honorable mentions. So because they pretty much all have the exact same 3s and 2s.
Yeah.
So there's no contention there. It's just going to be maybe we break it down really and kind of this is going to be where it gets tough as far as what stays in the S tier.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a good way to do this. So,
Well, first off, I think I was the lone A on Alien, so I'm willing to kick it up to an S out of respect.
Yeah. All right. You could do that, and then we could just bump up Alien.
I think, did all of us have Alien? Yeah, I had Alien on S.
Yeah.
Steve, did you have Alien on S? Okay. I know we have the wrong thumbnail, but it's Alien, not that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that'll be.
Man, I feel like The Exorcist deserves a spot in that top 10. Does everybody kind of agree? Like, even though I voted A, I kind of feel like Exorcist needs to be in there. Yeah.
Like when people mention all-time horror, they always mention
horror greats. It's always The Exorcist. Yeah.
Always.
And then maybe Midsommar stays in there just to give recent representation. Yay, nay?
I am willing for that.
Yeah.
I honestly, if I had to pick between Midsommar and Get Out, I prefer.
Maybe we'll go around the horn real quick. How about Midsommar or Get Out? We'll do a quick vote. Midsommar or Get Out as far as for recent. Steve?
Get
Out?
Midsommar.
Midsommar too for me.
Yeah, I'd say Midsommar too. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So maybe that one in the number 10, and maybe those 3 that were still in our get bumped down into our honorable mentions at the top of A tier and still make it.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of how it panned out.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, unless there's any strong arguments for any of the
other ones to be above for Dawn or so. I mean, I love Dawn, but I really like Candyman too, and I'm happy that Invasion is going to make it. So I'm happy with that.
I'm totally fine. With these 3. Yeah, that works for me.
Any other strong objections or arguments to the contrary?
I mean, I really would like the Silence of the Lambs to be in the S tier, but if it's not, I understand.
Man, if we're going with like pure horror, I know it is a horror movie, but man, I don't put Silence in there. Like again,
it's more like creepy.
It's like creepy thriller, like true crime horror. Just for me personally, but. Man, it's just barely.
I kind of wish
for me.
I kind of wish Poltergeist was a little higher, but I totally get it. So
Yeah.
like, I mean, I'm fine with that. That's just a personal.
Yeah. Hey, we never said it was going to be easy, did we?
No,
right.
At all.
No.
You know,
Not at all.
I mean, but these are all great. Again, we acknowledge these
Yeah.
are all amazing, outstanding, you know, phenomenal movies. It's just, you know, coming up with this list is something. So, but
Yeah.
I think we got it. But yeah, sorry,
Yeah,
Greg, go ahead.
And there's a definitive like list of horror movies that for someone that hasn't seen a lot of horror movies but wants to maybe get into it, like these are the movies you got to see. These are like the key.
These are a very wide
ones
range
you
of
wanna
all
see.
types of
Yeah.
subgenres and decades, and yeah, I mean, this is a pretty good. We always seem to come up with a pretty good diverse list. So yeah,
like it's pretty diverse and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's
All right.
470s, 380s, 190s, 1 noughts, and 1 teens. So
Yeah.
Well, and if you include the honorable mentions, we got another 90s, another aughts, and another 70s. So yeah, even those are spread out all over the place. So
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
Yeah, one of the funny things is like going through all the decades, like I could have sworn that the 90s was the decade where I'd seen the most. Then we got into the 80s and the 70s, and actually realized that I'd seen way more horror movies from the 80s and the 70s. So like I kind of surprised myself there with that one. So yeah.
All right.
It was a fun
All
ride,
right. Well,
though.
should I do the final breakdown for anybody just listening?
Yeah.
Break it down.
All right.
Yeah.
Break it down. All right. Well, coming in our horror championship, definitively number 1, John Carpenter's Halloween, appropriate enough for Halloween. Number 2, another John Carpenter. He was the man back in the day with The Thing.
Yeah.
Number 3, David Cronenberg's The Fly. Number 4, Stanley Kubrick's masterpiece of The Shining. Number 5, Steven Spielberg's Terror of the Waters, that is Jaws. Number 6, Wes Craven's Scream. Number 7, we've got Edgar Wright's Shaun of the Dead. Number 8, we have Ridley Scott's Alien. Number 9, William Friedkin's Exorcist. Number 10, the recent masterpiece Ari Aster's Midsommar, and coming in at our 3 honorable mentions, just squeaking in, Candyman, Get Out, and 1978's Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yeah. All right. That was fun.
All right. Good job, everybody. Well done.
Yeah.
Very
Very
Well
solid
done.
list.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it'll do it for us, but we put a cap on maybe horror episodes for just a little bit. We'll get back into some horror eventually. I mean,
We'll get into some other horror topics. There's other subgenres we can explore, or other different topics where we can bring up movies that haven't been brought up yet. I'm sure there's all kinds of stuff we can talk about.
I know we've been doing a sci-fi series every month, and one of the ones we have coming up is best monster movies. So that we'll include quite a bit of horror movies there. So so yeah. But yeah, we'll just go around the horn, and you guys can just tell us where we can find you, and then also too, I want to just reiterate that you can find the poll with our top 10 or 3 honorable mentions tomorrow in the Schmodown Friends and Family group over on Facebook. So, but if you want to go vote there, but we'll start with Steve. Where can we find you?
You can find me at Steve Mesa. That's my socials on Twitter, where you can find me mostly with a lot more followers than my Twitter handle here. But you can also find me at Mesa Media One, a production company that specializes in shooting and editing pro wrestling footage. I'm actually going to be going up to Gainesville this week for Fest Wrestling We Are Family 4. It's going to be a mix of wrestlers from Enjoy Wrestling, wrestlers from all over the independents, and wrestlers who've been predominantly known as best wrestling wrestlers. Gainesville, sold out. You can't get a ticket unless you already have a ticket to Fest. And if you already have a ticket to Fest, then guess what? Then you're already in like Flint.
Yep. Yeah, sounds good. Well, Mark, where can we find you at?
Right here on Twitter at THE_HOYK. You can also visit my film and culture blog, which is projectorhasbeendrinking.blogspot.com. I also write for the New Beverly Cinemas blog, which is thenewbev.com/blog. I just wrote an overview on the films of James Bridges, all of which will be showcased at the New Beverly in November. And I'm working on another piece that I'm very excited about. And that's, I think, I may have a couple of DVD commentary tracks coming up. I can't I can't really announce them right now. They're still in the works, but cross your fingers.
Yeah.
Hey, I have the Mac and Me Blu-ray. He has a great commentary on there.
Thank you.
Yes. I was so pleasantly surprised when I got it in the mail, and I was like, oh, it's our buddy Mark Edward Hoyt does the commentary on it. That's awesome.
Oh, you should have heard it before the MGM lawyers got a hold of it.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, boy. Yeah. Have you ever been, by the way, on the Pure Cinema podcast? Have those guys ever had you on there?
I have not yet had the pleasure of doing the Pure Cinema podcast.
How have you not been? How have Brian and Elric not have you on the Pure Cinema podcast talking about the New Beverly? I mean, come on. How have they not?
Well,
done that
yet? when you've got access to somebody like Quentin, why do you need a mokes like me?
Because you know your shit. That's why.
Yeah.
So,
I have had the honor of contributing every year to their. As you know, Brian Saar has his Rupert Pupkin Speaks blog, and every year he does a first-time discoveries list, and I compile that with the same sort of vigor that I compile my best new movies of the year list, and I've been doing that for over a decade. So,
gotcha.
All good things will come.
Yeah,
we'll have to rally the troops, and we'll have to bug them to get you on one of their podcasts. Come on now, talking about something.
I appreciate it.
Anyways, yeah.
Well, Austin, do you have anything you want to shout out?
I mean, I'm all over this channel, obviously. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. We're almost to 100 subscribers. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but it means a lot to us to get to that milestone. So please, if you see this, give us a subscribe. We just finally filmed our Live from Movie Hero episode with our tribute to Norm Macdonald, rest in peace, where we reviewed his episode he hosted in 1999 and also just gushed about Norm Macdonald for another half an hour after that and recited a bunch of his Weekend Update jokes and just had a good time just talking about him. And Jordan and I will also be on Rank 'em this Saturday, kind of doing the same thing we were doing tonight, ranking some of the greatest horror movies of all time and seeing if we can come up with the top 12 over there. Only that one includes the 60s. So because Mesa and I were on that 60s episode, so you could see something like Psycho on the list or Rosemary's Baby or something like that. So we'll see what happens. But we'll be on that show. So this is a nice warm up for that.
Very cool, and just a couple of things we have coming up. So there's a personal episode of tournament fights I've been wanting to do for a very long time, ever since we ever conceived the show. I'm a huge basketball fan, so I've been a huge NBA fan since like the 80s, 90s, and all the way till now. So I finally found enough people that were interested in ranking the greatest of all time. We are going to just recognize up top that Michael Jordan is the GOAT. He's the greatest of all time. He's going to sweep any tournament that he's ever in. So we're going to leave him off, and then we're going to have a debate from there for the number 2. So that'll be fun. And then we were going to do best basketball movie. Speaking of basketball this Friday, but we decided to postpone it just because so many people are just so busy for Halloween and stuff like that. So
I need more time also to watch cinema classics like Crossover, which has 2% on Rotten Tomatoes, starring Wayne Brady. So I don't have enough time yet to watch it, so I need more time for that and to rewatch Slam Dunk Ernest. All the classics.
Hey, it's all about Uncle Drew, baby.
Uncle Drew. Well, it's in consideration. Hey, given how thin this list is that we put together and how not deep this basketball is, Uncle Drew could very well make the S tier of that list. It's very, very possible. Because to me, it's Hoosiers, Hoop Dreams, White Man Can't Jump, and everything else. So who knows what will make that top 10.
That's up for debate after that. Yeah. But just a couple more that we have coming up. we're doing a tournament fights for the top 64 movies from IMDb, and then we also have best fictional restaurants coming up. So it'll be your favorite restaurant you see on movies and TV. So that'll be fun. And then we also have a tournament fights battles episode coming up for our favorite video games of all time, where we're going to be throwing 16 of our favorite video games of all time. We take 4 of us, and we each pick 16, and then we just throw them in the tournament, see which one comes out on top. So,
good times.
But that's pretty much what we have on the schedule. So, this has been a lot of fun. So that'll pretty much do it for us tonight. So, I'm pretty interested to see how everybody votes over in the poll. If anyone's upset that one of their favorites didn't even make the finals, maybe like there's a few heavy hitters that just didn't quite make it. So, but so that'll do it. So for Steve, for Mark, for Adam, for Austin, I've been Jordan Movie Hero Anderson, and we will see you guys next time.